evening, everybody. Peace, love, jiu-jitsu. Us.
Dude, we're rolling.
Welcome back, everyone. This is episode 101.
101. You can
It's like a reset.
turn your phone upside down. Same episode number.
Jiu-Jitsu Dummies 101.
Yeah. Level 100 class.
Brought to you by Black Belt Digital Marketing. Anything you need to build your business on and offline. So website design, Google Ads, graphic design, printing, T-shirts, things like that.
All that stuff.
Check them out. Check us out at Black Belt Digital Marketing on Instagram or our website, bbdigitalmarketing.com. Request a free review of your online presence today. My name is Milton Campus. Hello. I'm a brown belt training out of South Florida. Bo behind the camera.
Moo.
Miguel riding shotgun.
I got pistols today.
Shout out to Britt, our booking manager. Thank you for setting up all these awesome guests. Don't forget to like, comment, share, and click that subscribe button. We'd really appreciate the support. Don't forget to also click the notification button on YouTube. Right, it'll notify you when we have a new episode coming out.
Show.
Yes, please. And stick around. We're going to be joined by third-degree black belt, Emly Kwok, in just a little bit. So an OG of the game.
OG.
A few quick shout-outs here. Thank you to our friends over at Flow and Roll. Hands down, they have the best custom gi and no-gi gear in the business. I always say, don't believe us. Legit, check out their Instagram and just look at all the incredible stuff that they post at flow_n_roll. Right?
Just buy one rash guard.
Rash guards, gis, patches,
belts.
T-shirts, belts, embroidered
Keychains.
belts, keychains. You got it all.
If you're into that.
Flowandroll.com, right? Visit the site. You get 20% off with code JJD on your online order, not your like custom gi order for your whole gym, but 20% off of anything you buy online. And then, again, check out the custom work, the custom gis and no-gi gear that they create and design for academies throughout the entire country.
Mm-hmm.
It's incredible. Like when I see the names, I'm like, I'm so happy and proud. Like he's just like growing.
He's doing it.
New academies.
I see it.
He just did something for like Caribbean,
It's like not only is the
Caribbean
arc-
rollers.
Mhm.
It's like a really cool shirt. And it was like two like
Yeah.
skeleton. I think it was like skeleton.
Yeah, there's
kind of guys
I
rolling
think it was
these.
collar sleeve or spider lasso. I can't quite remember the move.
So again, get 20% off with code JJD at flowandroll.com. You can also still get your hands right. We got our pre-order going for the Peace Love Jiu-Jitsu tee. We should have thrown it up on the screen. We're going to run the pre-order for probably another couple of weeks, and then we're going to actually get the order in, and then we'll start to stock it. And
then the contest
when you order, we'll just mail it out.
Is going to be over.
Yeah, then the contest, once we come out of the pre-order, then we'll award the contest winner the $250 worth of jiu-jitsu gear for purchasing anything from any of our sponsors. Purchase something and send us the receipt on Instagram or at info@jiu-jitsudummies.com.
There you go.
All right. Thank you to the BJJ box. We're going to do an unboxing in a little bit, so we're going to hold off on their full.
Stick around, y'all.
Yeah, we're going to hold off on their full shout out. We'll talk a little bit more about them towards the middle of the episode. But thank you to Neutral Zone Clean. Check them out at neutralzoneclean.com and at Neutral Zone Clean on Instagram and Facebook. Now, we always like to say that we're sponsored by both Neutral Zone CBD and Neutral Zone Clean. These are two completely different products. The Neutral Zone Clean products do not have CBD in it, so it's really cool.
Hygiene.
Sprays, these are hygiene products. We're going to have the shower gels pretty soon. We've got the individual soaps that I tried out. Awesome.
I'm excited.
They
went with the black box.
What's that?
They went with the black box.
They went with the black box. Still cool. Love it.
Still cool.
We've got soaps coming. We've got shower gels in multiple sizes. We've got the bucket. Can you see the bucket here? Right, we got the bucket. So we got a couple of cool specials with them, right? So you can order anything from the site with coupon code JJD, get 15% off.
Mm-hmm.
So that's one, right? If you are a gym owner, you're running an event, and you want to have the nice bucket with the wipes, right? Pull the wipes out. You got the bucket, right?
Sharing is caring.
You can use code JJD GIFT, GIFT. You're going to get $10.99 off. So the cost of the bucket goes down from it's about $109 down to $99 and free shipping. That's 1,200 wipes. Again, this is perfect for the gym.
She's heavy.
For your academy, wrestling events, IBJJF, New Breed, whatever. Okay? So, again, check that out. If you order the bucket and use that coupon code, again, you're going to get free shipping. If you order anything else, they're also just going to give you free shipping. Yeah. So they're going to just throw it in the same shipment. So if you want a refill, you want the spray, you want the wipes, you're going to get it for free as well.
And send us your receipt.
And then shout out to Neutral Zone CBD. No matter if your aches and pains are coming from lifting weights at the gym or rolling on the mats, just a daily grind of life, Neutral Zone has a product for you. Find your Neutral Zone by finding the best products for your pain wellness so you can continue your active lifestyle. The roll-on is always my favorite. That roll-on goes right in my bag. I take it out of my bag. I put it up there because I keep on stealing it.
Yeah.
Love it for my neck, lower back pain. You know, I know it sounds weird. I'm at the computer all day. Yeah. Little neck pain. I put it, goes away almost immediately. It's not like these other sprays. There's just something different about it. I carry it in my backpack and / briefcase, let's call it. Everywhere I go, just in case, get a little ache and pain in the car. Remember the other day, you're like, saw me walking by, you're like, why are you sweating? I just put the roll on.
It scratches the itch.
Yeah, check them out at neutralzonecbd.com. And once again, it is, did we give out the coupon code there yet? It is 25% off with code JJD.
Whole quarter.
All right. We've actually, this will come out after Black Friday, so they'll have run some really cool Black Friday specials. So we're actually doing some graphics for them that they're going to post. And,
cool beans.
There's some cool stuff coming. All right. That is it. Let's get Emily in here, brother. Hi, Emily. How are you?
I'm awesome. How are you guys?
Good, good. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
A little pre-show comedy.
Thanks for accommodating my schedule.
No worries. Only like the top of the heap. Only for the big dogs. For most people, we're like, yeah, let them know. No, it's 7 o'clock.
Yeah.
You got.
We asked you. Remember, we asked you.
You got to be special. If we deviate from 7 or from Thursday. If we're filming on another day, you'd be like, yeah,
you're definitely special.
They know who's boss. Yeah. So let's dive in. I would not going to start from like, hey, when did you find jiu-jitsu?
Why not? Why not? That's what everybody wants to know.
Yeah, no, we're going to get to that. I'm going to do it backwards. It's like we're counting the wrong way. I'm halfway through your Lupe Fiasco episode. I actually listened because when I was looking for a podcast to do a little research, I came across a couple that you were on, and then I saw yours and realized, okay, this looks like I saw one that said conclusion. Okay, limited series, and I listened to the conclusion first, and then I was just like, okay, I like what I'm hearing. Let me go back and listen to an episode, and I started at the first one. So tell us about the project. Tell everybody the name of the podcast, and tell us about the project. And I believe you're going to be coming back with a season 2.
Maybe.
So the show, maybe if you're lucky.
Maybe. So I mean, okay, this is called the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies. Mm-hmm. So maybe people would be questioning why Emily is going to come on here and talk about her own podcast. But I promise it has something to do with jiu-jitsu or learning. So my project that I launched, I guess fairly a couple of years ago, was called The Master and the Apprentice. And I am actually super interested, as I would think many practitioners are, at a certain level of, I would say, depth and sophistication in your game. You go from watching and repeating and imitating everything that you see on the 5 kajillion instructionals that there are now. Yeah. And you start to question, like, how much of this do I know? Or do I know anything at all? Or as it's been rightly pointed out to me by other black belts, man, everybody's very confused in their jiu-jitsu because there's so much jiu-jitsu. There's a lot of quantity, not a lot of quality. And over the pandemic, I was on this audio app that maybe some people have heard of called Clubhouse. And for people who've never heard of it, it was this invite-only app initially, where someone would invite you on board, and it was almost like you were having a live podcast, and then you could invite people up into your podcast to either ask a question or become part of the discussion. And it ranged in topics, like people could be talking about anything. I think early on there were a lot of influencers in the tech field and some celebrities and musicians, and then it expanded. So when I got on board, I was just kind of bumping through a number of the rooms, and I came across a room with being hosted by Lupe Fiasco. And I thought to myself, like, this is the musician, like the rap artist Lupe Fiasco. So I jumped into his room and I started listening to him talk, and he was talking about martial arts. And so I decided to ask a question. We started a little bit of a dialogue, and shortly thereafter, he friended me he started following me on the app, and I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. And I figured maybe there was a little bit of a loose connection because I'm sponsored by Show Your Rule, and he's sort of loosely sponsored by Show Your Rule, even though he doesn't practice jiu-jitsu. And so
that's awesome.
We kind of had this, these like sort of light connections in the background. And I found myself going on the app quite a bit during that period of time because we weren't able to get out and socialize that much. And I would end up joining a bunch of rooms with him. And I would find that he was a really fascinating individual. We know him for his most public-facing venture, which is being a rap artist. But as I was listening to him and as we got deeper into conversation, turns out he had a background in the martial arts. He was raised in a martial arts family. He's also an artist. I studied fine arts. And we started hosting rooms together. We had a Sunday art battle, this and that. And I just grew to have a lot of respect for the individual that he was. And it occurred to me, I was just very curious about his process. Like, how did he become a rap artist of all things when he was clearly so well versed in so many different areas? And I met a lot of interesting people on Clubhouse. In the first couple of weeks, I made some pretty decent friends who are still friends today. And they all kind of seem to be hovering in the space of they've made it in some capacity. And I was just given some access to talking to them as a person. And I was very curious about how they made it, that sort of the ladder or the stage in between. And I really started to find that audio was a great format for me. I loved being able to flow in conversation with different guests. And audio, when you isolate the senses to just sound, it's incredible how much you can pick apart garbage, like what the noise is versus what real quality is. And so I would find these incredible guests, and I thought, you know what? I want to find a way to put this together as a project. And for a long time, I've wanted to transcend jiu-jitsu, because I think that a lot of the things that we learn in jiu-jitsu that keep us super engaged with it are not just jiu-jitsu things. Like I think as we train, we find that we find ourselves. We learn a lot about life. And so I thought, what, wouldn't it be cool if I could take all of these various disciplines and mediums and find a way to interconnect audiences? And so that's what I did. I thought, what, I'm going to find a number of quality guests. I'm going to limit it because I'm sure I have a ton of respect for what you guys do, that when you start something, sometimes you're constantly reaching back into the bag, trying to find a better quality guest. And how do you keep the bar high? And I'm very much somebody who tries to follow the principle of quality over quantity. And I didn't want to dilute the quality of the guests. So I said, what, let's go with 10. I can handle 10. It also doesn't add an additional workload onto me for years and years and years. And that's what I did. And so I launched this project. I approached some people that I really admired and respected, and I asked them to explore that space with me.
Were most, if not all of them, from that Clubhouse relationship? Relationship you formed there?
Yeah, I would say about 50% of them. The ones that were sort of more straddling the art, music, that realm, the creative realm. I got to speak to an incredible photographer as well. I think, it was only right that I reach out to a couple jiu-jitsu people. I've also started trying to learn how to surf. So I had some of my surf friends reach out and put me in touch with individuals in that capacity. And also in terms of curating guests, I thought it was important to have that be a reflection of the diversity in my world. So I'm not sure how many people picked up on it, but 5 of the guests were female, 5 of them were male. We have a lot of different, ethnicities and backgrounds in there as well. But I thought that was important to also demonstrate because as a female coming up in a very male-dominated sport, I think in order for all of us to find our way within it, we have to have a little bit more of an inclusive approach. And something that I've noticed as a female at the head of the room is that you're much more likely to appeal to a broader base of individuals when someone sees someone like themselves in the room. So, so that was my approach.
Absolutely. Well, I love what I've heard so far, and I will hopefully get through the entire series and look forward to the second. Who do you have a favorite guest? Was there anybody that stood out? We don't want to offend anybody, but they're not going to watch this.
They're not going to watch.
They're not going to hear us.
I would say that each guest taught me something different. Everyone taught me something different. And, the 4th episode, I interviewed Domenico Oblionete, who's also a jiu-jitsu athlete. And we explore our relationship because in many ways, she was a student of mine and we've evolved as a student and teacher. And sometimes she teaches me things now, Of course, I think if you're listening to the Lupe episode, you can clearly hear how intelligent the man is. Like he's pretty phenomenal on all accounts. And he's a decent human being. And so I really enjoyed speaking with him. But, recently I've been working on some projects that are kind of pushing the boundary of, I guess, what we know or what's acceptable. And the episode that I recorded with Bear from Show Your Roll really, I think is quite a genius episode when it comes to branding and creating culture. And I've been referring back to a quote that he says in there about, if you're not changing the culture, then like, what the hell are you doing? Right. Or what the F are you doing?
You can say it. We got the bell. Look, we're going to go like every time you drop an F-bomb. We're waiting for it.
You see?
Miguel is like, he's waiting for it.
I told you I could catch myself. I told you I could I can be proper.
Yeah.
So, it's come up a few times recently where I have been thinking about this, that, I don't want to be someone in this world to just do more of the same. I believe that I've been put here to push the boundaries and to change the norms. And so his words have been resonating with me a lot recently. But I remember when I approached all of the guests and I asked them to be on the show and I released the full roster, all of the guests wrote back to me and they were just like, wow, like you're going to put me on the roster with these people. And so that makes me feel good because I think there's a ton of mutual respect for what all these people know.
Game recognizes game.
Yeah,
That's what it was.
Yeah.
The whole list looked at the list and they were like, that's a list.
Time to step it up. So let's go back now. Let's go back a little bit. It's so fresh in my head. I wanted to talk to you about that. But let's go back to your start in jiu-jitsu. And obviously, if I'm listening to your podcast, I heard you tell the story of how you came to New York, your relationship with your dad, about him disowning you. Do you mind going into that a little bit and tell everybody, what brought you to the States and the beginning of your jiu-jitsu journey?
Yeah, I mean, I think I would even rewind it a little bit more than that. And I'm half Japanese and half Chinese, born in Japan, raised in Canada. I was a very good, obedient Asian girl, got my straight A's, did all my clubs. And actually, that's what got me into trouble. I was a really good kid, but my parents did not like the fact that I was outgoing and that I, wanted to go figure out who I was. So it created a bit of tension when I was a preteen that I was joining clubs and spending a lot of time outside of the house. And my father, I would say, was someone who I don't think was very happy in his career. I recall as a child, we would draw a lot together. And I remember him being such a phenomenal artist. And I see this happen a lot where people who are truly creatively spirited kind of stuff it in exchange for sort of, quote unquote, a legitimate, proper, safe job. And so my father did that. And I found him to be a pretty miserable person when I was in my teen years. And we had an incident one night when I was 14 where I didn't bring the garbage can in from the curb. And he got very upset at me and kicked me out of the house. Now, it was not my responsibility, but he just kind of blew a gasket that day and I left. And I remember feeling in that moment pretty dejected and low. And I don't think I quite found the words for it until much later in life, but I really think that at that time, I sort of emancipated myself from my family emotionally. And in some ways, I think it's kind of what's given me the balls to go do what I feel like doing all the time. Because people are like, how'd you do this? How'd you do that? I'm like, I just don't give a damn. Like, I don't give a damn. And in some ways, I think I don't give a damn because my parents at that age who formatively should have been supporting me did not. And so I think it made myself feel like, hey, I can only be accountable to myself for my own actions. So let me go figure this out. It was a blow up. I was back home 24 hours later. I went through school with flying colors, but I disappointed my parents again when I chose to go to art school and not go to university. And when I was 19, I looked up the opportunity to move to New York with a student work visa. I had always wanted to go to New York because as an artist, that's where all the big art was. So I found a job on the early days of the internet. I was going to be assistant managing a shop in Soho. And I had reached out to the shopkeepers and they had agreed to put me up with their accountant. Their accountant had a family and they lived in Westchester, which for anyone that's familiar with the tri-state area, it's sort of like an upper middle class neighborhood outside of New York. And I was like, great, I'm going to call you guys 3 weeks before I'm going to go and just arrange our plans. So I called them 3 weeks before I was supposed to leave, and they told me that they had fired their accountant. And so I no longer had a place to live. I was 19, never lived on my own before, had no friends or family in New York City. And I kind of, crumbled. And at that moment, my father said to me, he goes, you should just go on vacation and come back. Like, I don't think you should do this. But I was so set on having this adventure in New York City that when time came to go, rewind. The same day I lost the apartment or lost the place to live, I was contacted by someone from a website called, it was like a roommate match finder. And an individual had reached out to me and said he had a room available in a 2-bedroom apartment in Union City, which is right across from New York. And somehow in our conversation, we started talking on the phone that night. It never came up that I wasn't in New York. And 3-4 hours of conversation later, the sun is coming up in New York City. I'm in Vancouver. And he says, well, Emily, you sound awesome. If you want to come by and check out the place, I think this place is yours. And I said, well, I'd really like to, but I can't do that because I don't live there. And he said, well, where do you live? And I said, I live in Vancouver, British Columbia. I don't know if you know where that is. And he's like, what the fuck? He's like, get the fuck out of here.
Oh, that's 2. Ding dings.
It's 2. And he says, I'm going there next week on a business trip. And he's like, would you feel okay, or would your parents feel okay if we met up and then you would know like who's renting the apartment out and you could, if that would be good for you? And I said, I would love that. So complete coincidence, serendipity at work, comes out. I meet him and his girlfriend. I agree to move in with them. But my father flips, like it was not good.
Out, say it. He flipped the fuck out.
Yeah. And so my father then decides to disown me if I decide to leave. And of course, in the moment, it was very scary, but in reality, it was a scare tactic to try to control me, right, from doing something that freaked them out. I decided to go anyways because I felt like if I didn't do it, I would regret it the rest of my life and I would probably resent them the rest of my life. So I went, and I had $700 cash in my pocket and a credit card, and that was it. And it was either I was going to make it or I wasn't. Wow. But I was like, I am not going back to Vancouver with my tail between my legs. I'm going to fucking make it. And here I am.
Yeah.
So you came for the job. When does jiu-jitsu come into play? Is that immediate?
So the first year I hadn't been training jiu-jitsu. It's funny, depending on when you knew me, you either knew that I was going to become a famous artist or I was going to kill people for the rest of my life. And it wasn't until I went back to Vancouver later that fall in 99 that I started doing jiu-jitsu. So I did one stint in New York. I came back to Vancouver. I started training jiu-jitsu. I went to art school. The following year, I went back. And so for the next 3 years, I went to study in Vancouver, and then I would come back to New York every summer for 1 or 2 semesters, and I would just live and work. And it was during that second year that in 2000, when I started training at Henzo's.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So when you went back, did you feel like it? Did you know you were going to go back, or you wanted to come the first time and you really felt like you were going to stay? Or did you know, no, I am going to go back and I'm going to go to school? Or was it like your parents like, come back, you can go to art school?
Well, I knew that I had a student work visa and I wanted to be a legal immigrant. You know, I didn't want to screw myself up. So the initial summer, I thought I'd go for 4 to 8 months, but I don't know how many of you or your listeners have had the experience of being somewhere and just feeling completely aligned in that place. But our essence of home is really interesting. And I had never felt like Vancouver was home to me. Like it just felt very superficial all the time. And the first time I ever laid eyes on the New York City skyline flying over in a Cathay Pacific jet, before my flight landed at JFK, I was just like, this is home. Like this feels like where I'm supposed to be. And it really has been, like it's where I came to set some roots down. And so after I had my first experience being here, I thought, you know what, I have to do everything I can to come back. And so I spent the next 5 years of my life trying to figure out how to legitimately come back. And I mean, it's a long story, but it's a story that's filled with a lot of serendipity and individuals who dropped out of the universe to make it happen. But I was meant to be here.
So when you first stepped on that mat, that's in Vancouver. You started jiu-jitsu. Was it love at first sight? Was it like, oh, this is, or was it more like, okay, that was okay? I kind of have the sense a lot of people's like, you either really love it or you hate it. There's not a lot of in between. The in between are the blue belts that fall off, and you don't ever see again.
Well, I mean, look, I think when you're talking about people that may have started jiu-jitsu when I did, like 99, 2000, it's a different experience from somebody who's starting jiu-jitsu now. Mm-hmm. It's gentrified a lot. I know that at my school, I give people a completely different experience from what I started with. I think in my time, if you didn't really want to fight, you weren't going to stick around. The conditions were inhospitable. There was no reason. We're not great teachers of jiu-jitsu now. We were terrible teachers of it back then. And so I had a bit of a bumpy start because I initially started trying to box and I was terrible at boxing. And then I tried Russian Sambo, and then I wasn't allowed to train Sambo because the instructor and the people in my class didn't feel that women should be training Sambo. So I kept showing up. It's like, I want to fight. I want to fight. And it was actually one of my best friends, Roy Duquette in Vancouver, who he now owns Spartacus Gym on Commercial Drive. But Roy kind of took me under his wing and would help me out with a little bit of jiu-jitsu here and there. And then eventually I found a classmate who brought me to a community center that had a Brazilian jiu-jitsu program. And he said, look, you'll be able to train here because the people here are Canadian and, they allow girls to train. And I was like, great. So that's where I started, I would say, officially training. And the first time I did it, it was really frustrating and really hard, but it was super novel. And I saw at the time we had 1 or 2 women in the class, and it was just sort of a recreational community center activity. Like we'd throw the mats down 2 or 3 times a week, and you would look the program up in the activity books every season. You'd be like, oh, I'm going to sign up for jiu-jitsu for $95 for 3 months. And when I did it,
that's a deal.
And back then, oh my God. And so I saw a couple women doing it, and I just admired the fact that they could fight dudes. And so I was like, I want to do that. And so I just kept going like a dummy. I just kept going.
Yeah, we get it.
So yeah. Dummies. Literally, it's like the dummies.
I'm a sucker.
Yeah,
for sure.
I fell in love like what you. I equate what you just said about like you saw the skyline. You know, I was watching UFC religiously, and I'm like, I need to know that ground part. I thought I knew how to fight, and I'd always have a punching bag at the house, and I started to watch YouTube videos on how to kick, and but I was in love. Like when I went to jiu-jitsu, it was like I was already in before I even went. I knew that it was going to be something I wanted to do, so I felt that way about it, and then it just sucked me in. 9 years later, I'm. I love saying this. My wife says, you look like jiu-jitsu threw up on you. I've got the tattoo. I'm always wearing a jiu-jitsu shirt.
He's like the sharper
sticker
image
on the
of
car.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Podcast, t-shirt, website. Like I did it all. My marketing company is called Black Belt Digital Marketing. I'm not a black belt yet, but my life is consumed by jiu-jitsu. My wife is just now okay with it, but she wasn't
now
always.
Okay.
She's okay with it. She's just like, okay. She sees friends and family, like the guys are at the bar and somebody got caught in a strip joint, and it's like I'm at home working or at jiu-jitsu. We go to bed earlier on Friday nights than we do any other night of the week because we both go train in the morning. She trains kickboxing, and I go to jiu-jitsu. So I'm like, I always tell her, I'm like, look, I can be that guy and not be addicted to jiu-jitsu, but there's going to be something else that fills that spot. So anyway, that's how I scare her.
Yeah. It was just like jiu-jitsu for me was like, oh, this is like everything that I've always wanted to do, but we weren't allowed to in high school wrestling. You couldn't. I was like, what? You could just hold them down. Like when I first started doing jiu-jitsu, I was so like, and by jiu-jitsu, my first real introduction was combatives in the military, but like, I would just immediately base out to my belly all the time because that's what you do in wrestling.
Yeah.
And you just get choked. And then you're like, oh, wait, this is like to stay alive. It's not about points. But it's like, because one is a sport developed to be a certain way. And it took me a while to make the transition. But then I was just like, okay, I'll keep this stuff from wrestling. But like jiu-jitsu is so much more fun.
Thank you to Feito IT and AV. Specializing in commercial and residential automation, security cameras, CCTV, POS, and more. Check them out at feitoitav.com or call 305-428-2515 and let them know the dummy sent you. Thank you to Neutral Zone CBD, a combat family-owned company that supports athletes and the people who love them. Neutral Zone strives to deliver clean CBD products for sports recovery in gummies, lotions, balms, roll-ons, and more. After a competition, a hard rolling session, or a tough day on the job, Neutral Zone has a product designed to help you reduce inflammation, increase cell rejuvenation, and may even help with aging joints. Visit NeutralZoneCBD.com and get 25% off your order with code JJD. And follow them on Instagram too, at MyNeutralZone. Jiu-Jitsu's favorite monthly subscription box has now joined the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies podcast. The BJJ box is delivered to your door filled with premium jiu-jitsu and grappling apparel, equipment, supplements, supplies, snacks, and more. The crew at the BJJ box find the best in the world of jiu-jitsu and guarantee every box to be worth more than the cost. Each box includes 4 to 7 items you're going to love. Visit thebjjbox.com and use code JJD10 to get $10 off your very first box. And give them a follow on Instagram at TheBJJBox. Special thank you to the crew over at Flow and Roll for all their support. Flow and Roll is renowned for their incredible no-gi rash guards, shorts, and leggings. Flow and Roll has quickly become the premier custom apparel provider for academies big and small throughout the United States. Reach out today to discuss your custom order and ask about their incredible pre-order program. You can send an email to flowandroll@gmail.com or visit their Instagram at flow_n_roll and shoot them a direct message. And yes, they can create an awesome custom gi for your academy as well. Visit flowandroll.com to check out their awesome designs, and while you're there, pick up a Jiu-Jitsu Dummy signature tee exclusively at flowandroll.com. And remember, you'll get 20% off your purchase of t-shirts, rash guards, or gis with code JJD.
So we met at the same school, and we now train at different schools. He's moved, so he trains at a different school. And you said something before about, like, there's so much jiu-jitsu. Like, he knows the jiu-jitsu that I learned because he was at my school, the way my coach teaches. He's amazing. he's very high level. He'll say like, "Oh, I did the dump truck last night on somebody," and I'm like, "What the hell is the dump truck? I don't know this name." Like, I don't even. He doesn't use any names whatsoever. It's like, do this move from this position, and it's just not those typical names, right? So he'll come and he'll say, "He's like, you don't know what that is?" I'm like, I probably know the position, but I don't know that name. Mm-hmm. Everybody's got a different name. But my point was going to be that our jiu-jitsu is completely different. Like, he's learning things that we haven't touched on. We're like old school coach, like, learn the basics, drill it 10,000 times. Not that your school doesn't do that, but he's coming in with like, oh, ashi this and leg, and I'm just like looking at him like, yeah, but we're kind of still more we got go for the basics, and then like it's just like if you're more advanced, okay, he'll give you this little nugget over here. Like, he's not teaching like leg locks to white belts, which is kind of like a thing now, especially here in Florida. But talk about that a little bit. You kind of were saying like there's so much jiu-jitsu, and you also said something about bad teachers. Can we kind of like hone in on that a little bit? What is your take on that?
Wow, if we paraphrase what I said, I sound awful.
Sorry.
You got to get straight to it.
I didn't necessarily say that like, bad teachers, but I meant that I think a lot of the times we tend to assume that the person that's teaching us jiu-jitsu actually knows how to teach,
okay,
or communicate, or run a business, or be a good leader, or hey, even be a good person. So we are seeing that now because you're starting to see all sorts of terrible events and articles pop up about individuals that have abused their position of power. And I think it needs to be said that just because you yourself are exceptional at doing something, it does not necessarily qualify you to then be a great teacher of that thing or to be a great leader of that thing. And I think up until now, our sport just has not been as evolved for us to see those differences, right? How many times, and I am a product of this, have you laid your goods down at the feet of X instructor, only to find out that they were banging 5 students in the back closet and stealing money from people and mentally and verbally abusing each other. Like, there are a lot of bad characters in jiu-jitsu. And if you think about it, I'm not saying this of all jiu-jitsu instructors by any means, but if you think about it, the life of a stellar athlete is one that is center focused. You must put all the energy into yourself. You should be selfish. You should spend time figuring out what's good for you, not what's good for everyone else, so that you are able to optimally perform. But if you never actually get out of your subjective self and learn to objectify what it is that you know and how you see yourself, and then you're now put in charge of raising and guiding and teaching 100 or 200 people, but you've never actually spent that much time thinking about other people and how other people need to receive and learn. You've never really thought about how you need to communicate to be on the same level as other people. It's a breeding ground for a lot of bad things to happen, So when I say that sort of there's bad teachers, I just think that our sport has not evolved very well to a place where we are beginning to deconstruct these things and see that they are all separate. It's not that common. It's quite rare, I think, to find a teacher who is also a good athlete and also a good business owner. Like, these are all, I call them different hats.
Can I throw in role model? Right?
Yes.
Just because this black belt is a world champion or whatever, it's winning IBJJF, it doesn't make them a good role model. And I think that's a big part of some of those problems that you mentioned before. By the way, we're in South Florida. My school used to be called Fight Sports, so we know.
Oh yeah,
we know
that.
We know what happened. Yeah. Again, we've he moved and he popped around to a couple of schools before he found a home.
I'm at a Henzo gym now.
Yeah.
Okay.
And then my school just changed their name and backed away. Yeah. And listen, we still have Fight Sports guys come in. It's not like everybody was banished or anything like that.
Sure.
It was just like a separation was necessary.
There's some good people in bad places.
My school in South Florida is probably, I would say, very high on the list of, as far as kids programs are concerned. We have a very big kids program.
Yeah.
And to be associated with that, and parents are starting to ask questions, the gym moved away. I don't own the gym, so that wasn't my decision. But I chose to leave. And then they changed their name, and I, when I talked to the coaches, we're gonna be stepping away. Don't go anywhere. We'll be okay. So anyway, so we know of this kind of intimately. Again, we're here in South Florida. We film in Miami. It's unfortunate. We're not throwing stones at fight sports, but again, it did happen.
Yeah.
So we know this, and again,
my kids train. That was I was like, what?
Yeah.
No.
So I don't want to tell your part of the story if you didn't want to bring it up again. So
I think that for a long time, we've allowed certain individuals to hold the narrative for too long just by being passive. Right. And I understand that when we're in a position where we need something from someone, and in this case, for a long time, Americans needed jiu-jitsu from people that knew it longer and better than them. Okay, great. Yeah. And there are a lot of Brazilian athletes and a lot of American athletes that know wonderful jiu-jitsu, that are wonderful people, but there are some that are not. And we have, I think, in some ways, learned to just kind of look the other way and accept bad behavior. And I think we've now come to a place in the sport where we don't need to do those things, and we can choose to act differently. We can provide better examples. And so when I think about what it is to teach and guide, I do hope that the message gets out there to more people that, look, your teacher might be an incredible technical instructor, but don't go and ask them for mortgage advice, or don't think that they're going to know how to, and this happens all the time. And I've done it. I've been so guilty of putting my instructor on a pedestal, thinking that they were going to teach me the wise wisdom of the universe. And then I'm disappointed when I find out that he hired a prostitute to suck his dick. So I'm just like, okay, well, what am I supposed to do with that? Yeah. But anyways.
I think Miguel and I were both, I guess in this case, lucky enough that we started when we were older.
Yeah, I was going to say that. I
started at 41. 35. Started at 35. We were grown men, kids, families. I had adult children at the time,
They're still adults.
And, well, I'm saying, at that time,
I'm just messing with you.
My daughter's an adult in college, or even at that point living with a boyfriend,
Yeah.
And I should say, and I probably haven't shared this a lot. I know that I've said it privately. I think I might have mentioned it on the episode, on an episode around the time that it was happening. Is, we actually put out a little video that we were going to leave Fight Sports where we were, and it was no hard feelings. We don't you want to stay, you're staying. We're not pitching people to leave. We were going to leave, and we felt like we kind of had to, because we were always talking about how we were part of that school and the system. Yeah. I had just found out that a family member was sexually assaulted as a child, and she had just came out with that information, and I was sitting here going, how do I look her in the face, knowing what I know, and I'm going to say that I'm going to this school when exactly what happened to some of these girls happened to her.
Yeah.
How do you look anybody in? I was, it's hard to talk about. I talked to my wife about it, and she was just like, you have to do what's the best for you. But, again, how do I tell this person, oh, yeah, no, that happened at my school. You still go there. You still give your money to that system. Yeah. And that it was an easy decision. It didn't take long. Mm-hmm. Again, Miguel has small children. Didn't take him long. But yeah, so, again, I haven't spoken about that a lot, but for anybody that ever thinks we're throwing shade, listen, we all have our story, and, it's a decision, very personal decision to leave jiu-jitsu that, I was there, 7 years?
Hey, listen, if you want to,
like a home, that's your home, man.
Sure,
that is my home away from home. That is my.
I'm sure some people are still struggling with it that are higher belts or have allegiance
schools
to it.
have quietly left.
And what about the group of friends that you have there, and half of your friends don't want to go, and then half of your friends do?
Going back to the age thing, though,
it's not their fault.
It was definitely typically one of the oldest people on the mats at any given time at my school. Probably still one of the two, 49, 50-year-olds on the mat, like Ray.
Yeah. You gotta
a lot of these guys are in their 20s and they're kids, and the parents aren't on social media seeing the stuff that we were seeing, and they didn't all know. And
you're also adult enough not to ruin the business of the place that you go to by starting to talk shit.
Yeah. Well, anyway, so we're talking about bad, if we want to say bad teachers. My coach is incredible, husband-wife team. We have a huge female presence. We have a huge kids program.
All the green flags.
Exactly.
all the green flags.
All the green flags, all the signs of a really good school. female coaches. More, it was usually more female coaches than males at our school at any given time. But yeah, I mean, we kind of seen that from the inside out of, again, just because you're high level and you're winning, it doesn't make how many, most schools don't last. I mean, now that jiu-jitsu is more popular, how many schools do you know that have closed over your stint in jiu-jitsu, your tenure in jiu-jitsu? So yeah, I mean, again, as adults, we kind of realize that, the champion does not equate good person, good businessman, good of any of these things. But on the other side, there are people that are amazing at those things and are able to be world champions. So.
Well, and I also think it's great, and I think it's worth noting that you guys are both men who made not a decisions based on the fact that you realize that these things affect people that you care about. Because I see a lot of the times it's like, the bro squad will be like, well, it's not, didn't do it to my girlfriend, or it happened to the random girl that we don't really like or we don't really know what to do with. So that's cool. It's not cool.
That's cool.
Cool. You came out of a woman's legs and her body, like you are related to this somehow. But a lot of people just kind of want to pass the
Happy birthday, Mom.
Responsibility. So I do, I think that we've come further. We still have a long way to go.
Yeah.
I think it's.
You have a huge sample size. Like, you're an OG. To me, I consider you like an OG jiu-jitsu black belt.
Well,
because you started.
We're gonna get
you
into
started
where
90. Yeah, you started in 99. Like, that's
at Henzo's
in America.
I'm a grandma.
You're not a grandma, but no. I mean, like, you consider yourself a grandma. I think I look at you at the same light as any other person who's had that 1990s jiu-jitsu journey in America. Because you're a lady, I don't give a shit.
Was it
like, I think if anything, more of a stripe of honor, because being a woman back then, going to those type of gyms, the atrocities.
Did women that trained in jiu-jitsu talk about those things that were happening at that time? Like, were you guys seeing that, or was it just kept
all
hush,
three
hush,
of you?
Or?
No, I'll tell you what happened. If you were one of the few women training, I mean, you probably, if there was one other woman in the school, there was a very high probability that other woman was the one sucking dick, or protecting their base. Women were really hostile towards each other in a lot of situations. Like, I remember when I showed up at Henzo's as a white belt, there were two women there that I really looked up to. One was a blue belt, the other one was a purple belt. And I so badly just wanted to train and learn from them. But they wanted nothing to do with me.
When you said they were protecting their base, what do you mean? The base of men that were there? Like,
they had crews.
Their territory?
They had their crews of dudes.
Yeah.
And I see this happen a lot within power dynamics amongst women. It's a scarcity mindset of, there's only room for one chicken here, and it's going to be me.
Oh, wow.
And if you try to come take my space, I'll fucking cut a bitch.
Wow,
and
chicks were gangster.
Women eat women. Women eat women.
Yeah, women are fierce, man.
That was back then. Do you think that it's still like that now?
It's still like that, bro. I'm outnumbered.
This is not
all
just
the time.
jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
This is not just jiu-jitsu. This is any power dynamic where females are involved. I'm not saying that all females are this way, but it is a very commonplace situation to have a high-powered female that looks at the females coming up under them, and instead of fostering growth and saying, let me find ways to pull you up, let me find ways to create more positions for you, they see their position of power as the only female position of power. And they're like, if there's 10 guys on the board and I'm the only female, there's no room for more of you. So I'm going to cut all of you down so you don't get anywhere close to me.
It's so funny that you said that, because my wife is always complaining about somebody at her job, and you just made me realize, I think, what it is. And it's that.
It's exactly this.
I think that's that. And she used to be in charge, and the hierarchy changed, the company restructured, and she's not in that same position officially. So she doesn't have power, but she walks around trying to wield that power. And I think that it's a little bit more, that makes the most sense of anything that I've heard that she thinks it is.
You've tried to even come up with? You have such a nice brain.
Yeah.
Well, it's sad, because I think as women, it's funny. I feel like as women, sometimes we're always fighting each other, right? Because as much as we're like, women's equality, and let's get more women to participate, and let's make more women's jobs, and, whatever the thing may be. within that movement, there are still women who have a very scarce mindset about, well, if I climb this high, I can't possibly make more room for others because I had to work this hard to get what I have. So this is all I have and I'm not going to give it up. Right. And so I think as women, we need to be kinder to each other, and we need to see abundance. We need to see that if you get to a position of power, you create more space for others like you. Right. So like for a long time, guys didn't know what to do with me. I was very fortunate that I had a lot of great men foster my development, but there were a lot of occasions where they didn't know what to do with me. I was the one with the vagina and the boobs, and they're like, how do we train with you? What are we going to do? Right? I can't touch you this way. What if you're too sensitive? And I'm like, in many ways, it was a compliment to be treated like a dude, right? I would get to go in the back room and see all the dudes smoke weed or go hang out. You know, like that was the cool thing because it meant like they could let their guard down around you. But I saw a lot of foul ass shit growing up in jiu-jitsu. And rather than blow the horn on everybody, I just thought to myself, you know what? I'm being given a little bit of an inside view into what it is to sort of be part of that crew. And I will find a way to slowly climb up. And there will be a time where I will have enough of a platform to actually make a difference. But that time is not now. And now I'm at a place where I'm a 3rd degree black belt. I should be applying for my 4th very soon. I went through some shit where I almost didn't make it. But now that I'm here, I'm like, okay, let's create more opportunities for people that are otherwise minorities, whether you're a smaller person or, you know, whatever kind of minority you are. Now's the time to show a different way of doing things. It doesn't mean that the way that we've been doing things is wrong or bad. Sometimes it is, but let's just do it differently. Why can't we have more diversity at the top? And that's, I think, something that we need to do more of. You
know, it's funny. Miguel's always telling me, like, I'm too worried about what people think. And the other day, I don't want to say the name of people. There's a parent that has a son and daughter in class. They're teenagers. And I've never rolled with her daughter. She's tall and she's a big girl and she can handle herself. And I was rolling. It was an open mat. And I know the mom. We're friends, friendly. And I asked her, I go, is it okay if I roll with your daughter? And she's like, go ahead. But I'm so conscious of the male-female dynamic on top of the fact that I'm an old man about to ask a 16-year-old girl to roll that I didn't ask the coach. I asked her mom because I know the mom is going to be the one that's like knows she's like the guys in the class skeeve her out, or no, like she knows like maybe that's not the best situation.
She probably has like the best gauge.
Yeah,
she's there every day.
Yeah, but again, and I know her, but I've never rolled with her daughter. And I said, hey, do you mind if it's okay? Like quietly said to her, she goes, go ahead, go, but that's how conscious I am, because again, going back to, I'm worried about what people think. I don't want to just be the creepy old guy that just access you. Why are you brown belt rolling with this girl that's under 16? That's whatever striped belt that she has. She keeps
getting younger every time you talk about her.
Well, she's what? How old is she?
I don't know, but you just started high.
What did I start at?
I think you started at 16. Now you said younger than 16.
Well, she's under 16. I was going to say because she's not a blue belt.
I know. I was just fucking around, but I get what you're saying.
But was she willingly in the same class that you were in?
Yeah, we do like open mats Saturday and Sunday. I think it was probably Sunday. We do open mats both days at our school very early in the morning, and we've also done like our school is great at getting the kids through the door and then getting the parents on the mat. So it's like we kind of call it family jiu-jitsu. So it's just a mix of kids and adults. Most of the times the kids are on one side and the adults are on the other. But again, she's
bigger than all of the kids. She
bigger
takes
than
an adult
some
class.
of the,
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you a different perspective on the same matter, or like a similar. I think it's kind of a similar situation. But the reason why I asked is like, was she did she want to be in the class, or, it'd be different if she was part of the kids class and you walked over before the adult class and say, you want to roll with me, but she's in the same class as everybody else. She's in the general population. Right.
Yes.
So to me, that indicates some sort of willingness or choice to mix in.
Yeah.
And years ago, I had competed in a tournament, and I fought the 3 women that were in the tournament and I won. And then the promoter came up to me and said, hey, because I think it'd be really cool if you joined in the absolute bracket. And I said, oh, is there one for the women? He said, no. He's like, it's an absolute bracket for the guys, but I think you'd do really well. So like, do you want to join it? And I was like, I don't really want to make this a spectacle. It might be a little weird. And he's like, no, I think there's a lot of people that they respect your ability. Like, you should come. So I was like, all right. So I joined the absolute bracket. And when they drew the first two names, it was myself and another individual. He was a guy that was probably similar level. We were both blue belts, and he was about the same size as me. But when we went up to do the fight, he backed out of the fight, and he says, no, I can't fight you, because my mom taught me to protect women, not fight them. And you got to understand, it's kind of awkward for me. And I was like, all right, well, I'm just letting you know that I'm choosing to be here. I don't need to be protected, and I'm happy to fight, And he walked away from the fight. Somebody else stepped up. We fought. I lost with 30 seconds on the clock. It was a good match. And after the fight, the guy came back up to me and he was like, hey, I just want to say, like, good match. It was a little awkward for me because I hope as a dude, it's kind of like a lose-lose situation. If I win, it's against a girl. If I lose, it's against a girl. I'll come to your school anytime and train with you. But I was like, nah, man, I'm cool. And so the reason why I wanted to say that story is, like, as much as you might be afraid of what people think of you, and I think it's very chivalrous for you to go and speak to her mother and say, is it okay if I train with her? I think when you are sort of in the position of being different or the minority, or in this case, like the female, when you show up, there's a part of you that wants nothing but to be included and be treated like everybody else, And I think what I witness as a business owner is when there's another woman on the mats and a woman comes through the door and she goes, oh, I want to train. It's I think a bit of a sense of relief for her to see that there's other females populated on the mats. But at my school, we train co-ed, I don't have a women's only class. And so, it's interesting when you are very aware of the position you have, minority or majority, and then how you choose to approach that line. But I would say, like, I can't speak for everybody, but I'm sure that she was probably thrilled that you asked her to train, because from her eyes, she's like, maybe she wants to be taken seriously as a chick. Okay. And she's thinking to herself, I'm bigger than all the kids and I don't really quite fit into the adult class. I'm not quite a child anymore, but wow, if this like brown belt dude asked me to train, like, cool, like maybe he sees something in me, or maybe I have something to offer.
And it actually was that. It's like, she's tough enough that I could roll with her, that I knew she was going to give me a challenge, and I knew it wasn't going to be a situation where, like, okay, old guy just holding her down. Like, I knew it was going to be challenging and we were going to be able to have a good role. And I knew that by just seeing her kind of grow up in the system. I'm there 7 years. I've seen her. She was there before me. She's been there throughout. And I've seen her from the kids class to the adults. So next time I'm just going to smash her.
Yeah.
That's it.
Heard that. There you go.
So I actually want to go. So tell us about you're at Henzo's. Tell us a little bit about that time, and then do you wind up at Marcelo's, or Can you kind of give us a little rundown there?
Yeah. So I think it's interesting that lineage is like a whole other episode, but like,
oh yeah,
like there's so much to say about lineage. But I moved a lot between, I guess, in the decade of 19 through 30. I moved between Vancouver and New York, Vancouver, Tokyo, back to Vancouver to New Jersey. And so I couldn't have stayed in one school and gotten my black belt from one instructor if I wanted to. And I never moved for jiu-jitsu. I moved for life. I moved to have these different experiences. And I got my blue belt under Henzo, but I didn't train with Henzo the full time. I was back and forth between Vancouver and New York. So I was trained by a guy named John Kefalnitis, of course, my best friend Roy. And also he became a pride fighter, but his name was Dennis Kang, and he was a brown belt out of Vancouver. So those were my first three instructors until I had moved to New York. And of course, because Henzo was this legendary black belt, it was a huge honor to receive my blue belt from him. But I received it about 2.5 years in, because I was flying back and forth. So he, I think instructors get confused when you're not there the full time. Am I promoting you? Are they promoting you?
Yeah.
after 3 years of going back and forth between Vancouver and New York, I had graduated. I was no longer eligible for a student work visa, so I couldn't come back to the US. And I moved to Tokyo for a year. And when I was in Tokyo, I trained under, at the time, he was a brown belt under Yuki Nakai, and his name was Takashi Ochi. So I trained with him for the year, and he gave me my purple belt. I rejected my purple belt once, embarrassingly, because I was like, I don't deserve this. If I go back to North America, they're just going to slaughter me. But it got to the point where I'd fought in a bunch of tournaments there. And in Japan, now, by North American standards, I'm not that huge. I'm a middleweight. I weigh about 150 to 155 pounds, and I'm about 5'4". But in Japan, I'm a big honking lady. Like, I'm huge. And so people wouldn't enter tournaments if I showed up because they're like, oh, no, this is Emily from America. She kills everybody. And so
Nice.
I started fighting MMA because I had nothing else to do. And so I think it was 2 or 3 tournaments I'd won as a blue belt, and then and then Ochi-san wanted to promote me to purple belt, but I gave him the belt back, and I said I'm not ready for it. And then I won another tournament, and then he gave it to me then.
All right, guys. Once again, we told you earlier we're gonna save the shout out for BJJ box because we have an unboxing. Sent us a new box. I'll hold off on showing the T-shirt.
Yeah.
The BJJ box is Jiu-Jitsu's favorite monthly subscription box. It's delivered to you to your door, filled with premium jiu-jitsu and grappling apparel, equipment, supplements, supplies, snacks, and more. They find the best products in the world of jiu-jitsu and guarantee every box to be worth more than the cost. Each box includes what you're about to see, about 4 to 7 items. It's different every time, different every month. Use coupon code JJD10 for $10 off your first box. So let's check it out. What do you got?
So the first one is Rain Total Body Fuels. Got BCAAs, BCAAs,
All right, very cool.
aminos.
You got that, Bo?
Monkey tape. You know what I'm saying? For them carpal tunnels. What do we got in here? Monkey tape's good. Neapolitan. It's the ice cream.
That was a smart idea.
Yeah, I like
cool.
it.
I told you that you can have this stuff.
I like
now,
that
now
you can
I'm
make
almost,
a candle after that.
I'm like, which one do I want? And it's like the 3.
They're different
three
sizes. Yeah.
Very cool. Smart. I like that.
Different monkeys got different hands.
Which flavor do you normally eat
I'm
out of the Neapolitan?
I'm the most vanilla dude you've ever met your whole entire life. Low-key just add some stripes to my belt, too.
Very cool.
Know?
Thank you to Monkey Tape.
Yep. Then some defense shower gel.
Very cool.
Yep, there you go.
Get the yuckies off.
That's right. And we have, boy, I don't know how to pronounce that. LJOMI. Jomi?
Let me see.
Flexi Balm. Well, it's for like cracked skin and abrasions. And does it say abrasion or scratches?
Laomi?
There's how you pronounce that J.
Well, I think maybe that J is silent, or maybe the L is silent and it's Jomi.
Yeah, it could be French.
Okay.
All the letters are silent.
Flexi-Balm naturally smooths and restores irritated, itchy, or dry skin.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay. Test is small, but yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool. Coconut oil, white beeswax,
Smells
tree,
good. We
canola
smelt
oil,
it. We smelt it. Before we
eucalyptus.
came
Yeah,
here.
you can smell it, right?
Yeah. When anything in a BJJ box, we break the first rule of science class, which is don't smell it. We smell it.
And
then
then
what do we got
both
here?
Got a
BJJ. I can't wear this.
BJJ Savage. Why not?
Well, I'm not a savage.
You're not a savage. You just
I'm not.
you brag about how you beat up the guys in the trial.
Yeah, that makes me like the
on
worst
their
person on
1
earth.
week trial.
Yeah, that's
Right there,
that
Bo.
makes me
Very
a horrible
cool.
person, not a savage.
What do you think, Bo? You like that?
It's got the Punisher skull on it.
Very cool.
Looks good.
I had the box before the UFC fight.
Yeah.
I was going to wear it that night, and then I said, I want to wear it on the show the first time. Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you to Tony at the BJJ box, man.
I love it.
Let's get back to the show.
Let's do it.
I came back to North America. I stayed in Vancouver for a brief period of time, and then I was back on the East Coast. At which point, I kind of trained a little bit with Henzo, and then I started training at Ricardo Almeida's. Had a fallout at Ricardo Almeida's, and then I was kind of in purgatory for a year, training with a couple black belts that were under Henzo, but I was working with them. I wasn't necessarily under them. And then I found myself over at Marcelo's in 2009 when he had just come back from Florida. And the reason why I found myself there was his wife, Tatiana, had seen me in a number of tournaments, and she would always find me, you know, just as we were boarding the plane to come to California or go somewhere, she would be like, "Hey, I know you." She's like, "I saw you compete because you should come train with me." And I don't know how many of you guys know that before there was Marcelo, there was his wife, Tatiana. And Tatiana was one of the leading ladies in Brazil and a really prominent female competitor. So I'd heard all sorts of great things about her jiu-jitsu. And coming up, I really didn't have female training partners. It was very, you know, I was as a purple belt in New Jersey, there were no other purple belts really for me to train with. So to find as a purple belt, brown belt, black belt, a female black belt who was highly qualified that wanted to train with me, I just jumped at the chance. So when I found myself at Marcelo's, it was 2009, and it was a real breath of fresh air. I went through a pretty dark period right before then. Leaving, you know, Ricardo's was really rough, and you know, it was a pretty sad time for me. I almost left jiu-jitsu because of how I was treated. And when I went to Marcelo's, it made me feel great because I felt like it was such a recentered and refocused energy towards the purity of jiu-jitsu. It brought me back to understanding why I did it in the first place, which was that I enjoyed it. It brought me joy, you know? And I forgot to mention this when we were talking about instructors before, but Tachi said something that has stuck with me for ever since she said it, which is, you deserve the instructor you choose, you know? And we make a lot of bad choices. We can make a lot of bad choices, and then we stand by those choices because we think we have to, right? So when I was at Marcelo's, I gave my competitive career another go, and I had some success there before I stopped to have children. And I've been under Marcelo ever since. And I don't get to train with him all the time now. I have my own school. I have my own responsibilities. And of course, now he's moved to Hawaii. But I see instruction and affiliation as so much more than just teach me everything you know about jiu-jitsu, you know? And like, at the end of the day, he's, I think, a really humble and honorable person. And I want to stand on the right side of jiu-jitsu, and I want to be with good people. And they've welcomed me with open arms, and I've had a great relationship with them ever since.
And create culture, like you said before. Yeah.
So tell us about your school.
What do you want to know?
Where is it? I was going to lead
Teaching
into
heel hooks
you
to
mentioned
white belts?
do you teach white belt heel hooks? You mentioned that your husband was going to be teaching. Is he also teaching jiu-jitsu? Is he at your school teaching jiu-jitsu? Is he involved?
Yeah, so I have a school in Princeton, New Jersey. I co-own it with someone named Art Kynes, who was also a black belt under Ricardo. And we've had the school for about 12 years now.
Wow.
And Art's background is actually as a former narcotics detective. And my background was in competition. So I kind of felt like it was a great blend of having the two different sides of jiu-jitsu, really, like the real applicable street side of it, and then the sport aspect of it. Yeah. I also felt like when we opened the school, it was 2010, and I was just in the middle of making the instructional How to Defeat the Bigger, Stronger Opponent with Stefan Kesting, which I was very embarrassed to put together, not because of Stefan, but rather I thought that the industry wasn't ready for a female instructor, and I thought that they would all laugh at me, right? Like I thought that it would be rejected.
First one.
And so, you know, for those of us that were maybe too young to remember what was going on with the internet at that time, YouTube was still kind of sketch, right? Like, don't go on YouTube and learn your technique. And so I think as things have, you know, grown and evolved, it's interesting. Like at the time I thought as a female, I couldn't make it by myself, you know? And so Art and I had known each other for a long time. And I was like, yeah, I really like, this'll work. Cause like as a woman, I need to work with dudes. Otherwise I don't have a career in jiu-jitsu. And so we built the school over the last 12 years. You know, COVID, holy shit. Thank God we survived it. but we have a really diverse mix of people. It's a transient community because we're close to Princeton University. So we have a lot of really intelligent individuals that come in and out. We have families, we have young people, we have middle-aged people. It's a community that I'm really proud of. It's something that I wish I had growing up, where everybody kind of belonged. It's part of my mission to normalize women at the front of the room. And we've largely done so at my school, like it does. If I bring a female instructor in for a seminar, a lot of men will show up, all the men don't go hiding and say, oh, I don't know if I have anything to learn from this chick because she's 125 pounds. What's she going to teach me? So it's nice that we've sort of been able to build a really inclusive place. And I couldn't be prouder of it. And strangely, I don't know how it happens. Sometimes I look at my upper belts and like we have a slew of like brown and black belts that are all like 6'4", 220 to 250 pound dudes. And I'm like, I don't know how this happened.
I know exactly how that happens.
But we have a healthy population of females. I would say about 30%, which I think is good. So you're never going to find a class where there's no females. Sometimes you're going to have a class with 50% females. Other times there might be like, 10%, but it's a really nice mix. And I'm super proud of what we've built and all the students that have come out of there.
So your husband, is your husband instructing right now? You said he was teaching?
Yes. So my husband and I met as purple belts. He became a black belt under Marcelo because he did not want anyone thinking that I was giving him his black belt. And he teaches a few classes a week at the school. He is not the co-owner. Everyone always gets it mixed up because Art's wife is Asian and my husband is Puerto Rican, but he looks Caucasian. Right. But
so he's also getting he's also getting 1099.
Yes, he's a Boricua. But my husband is also a retired firefighter. And he stays at home with the kids. So, I very kindly let him out of the house 3 times a week so he can go train and teach.
Let him, huh?
Yeah.
That's a clip right there. We're going to send him that clip right there.
Yeah.
I let him. No, he's really, I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't have such a supportive husband. And he's been awesome in terms of letting me grow and kind of chase after my dreams. So the only reason why I can be on this podcast and travel and get to do the things I do is because he's really so happy and proud to be part of it.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that's really awesome. It's also cool that in a weird way, you've essentially opened up a gym that you wish you had when you were traveling and you were a transient person. And also, just fun fact, when you said you had a 30% show up of women in your class and then you gave the breakdown of like sometimes it's 50 and then sometimes it's 10, that's 60%, and the average of that is 30%. I don't know if you did that on purpose, but that was spot on.
I know.
Well, I'm Asian. I mean, please.
Yeah, but that would make it even funnier if you didn't do it on purpose and you still got it right.
So I know that, like, again, sometimes at our school, again, husband-wife team, we do have
I still consider
a lot of times I don't want to say most days, it's usually 50-50, and a lot of times it's,
it's the culture.
70-30 where it's 70% women in our school. Yeah.
But it's the culture. It's so like these ladies, the female instructor is have you heard of Sofia Amarante? Like she's
of course. Is that where you train? Can I tell you?
I was like, there's not that many. They trained at the same time. Like that's.
We fought against each other, dude.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and her damn little legs.
I was about to say her feet. Yeah.
Always give me some shit when I would try to pass her fucking guard.
Nothing's changed.
Yeah. Well, that's what you said. What do I have to learn from this 125-pound woman?
Yes.
Well, what you got to learn is that frames are important because, like,
you telling her this?
No, I'm just saying, no, I'm saying from the mentality that she was talking about, like a dude saying, like, what would I have to learn from this 125-pound person?
Oh, yeah.
The dude shows up and he's the big guy who wants to work on his guard retention or whatever.
No, let me say that hopefully her husband Felipe doesn't hear this, but secretly we love when she teaches class because she's so technical that there are a lot of us that like we love the details that she goes into, and just like she likes to invert. I'm sorry, she inverts. She just teaches us some of the same moves, but her way when her husband's not around. Like she might be running the class show, so we'll combine the in some cases, like the women we have a wall and there's a separate room, and she'll do just women only classes, and then the guys are on the other side. A lot of times we're together, but when she teaches the class, it's a lot of the guys are like, yes, because we get this different take on the same jiu-jitsu. And she's amazing. She's a world champ. She's incredible. She's fun. My only gripe is that she's so little with those legs. Like sometimes I'm like, I can't do that. She's so close to the ground. We did a pass recently, and I'm like, I have to go knee on belly on the guy to get my leg out of the, he's trying to like regain. I'm like, she just picks it up and like brings it through like the center. And I'm like, I have to go around. I can't sit and do, like, she's so low to the ground. It's so funny.
That's great. And how about the dexterity?
But it's amazing. Well. I also, I find that fun to figure out how it works better for me. I'm 235 at, 240 at any given time. So I sometimes have to find, I can't.
And he's a brown belt.
My back is bad. So I've got to find like the different ways that it works for me. And so I love when she teaches, because then I get to pick it apart and figure out like, how does it work for the big guy? So.
Well, I mean, I think, I would always get invited out to Michigan. For some reason, Michigan likes me. and this guy, Dan, out in Lapeer, Dan was a former like strongman, right? And so he's almost like a solid 250, maybe 275, like solid beast of a human. And his school was full of other dudes like him, blue collar dudes. And when he would invite me out for a seminar, I'd show up and I'd be like, holy shit, like, what do these people want to learn from me? And we would go out for dinner and he'd say, well, Emily, he's like, as a larger person, and he goes, and I have a bum knee because of all the weightlifting. He's like, why don't people want to learn from women like you or people like you? Because if it works for you, how could it not work for the rest of us? Right? Because if you're the one that has to fight it, if you're the one that has to use this technique fighting off people that are much bigger and stronger, how could it not help the rest of us? And something that I actually tell a lot of my students is, I don't care what your size or gift is, don't rest on your assets, right? So like, if you're big and strong, the worst thing you can do for your jiu-jitsu is to just use big and strong, because we already know that about you. So if you want to get better, why not develop things that are harder for you? And you always know you have big and strong in your back pocket, but don't let that be your A game, right? Or if you're small and quick, don't let that be your A game either, So I think when we approach our training in different ways and we can value the other, like there's just so much, our training becomes so much deeper and so much richer, right? But a lot of people just want to hammer down what they're good at, and they just want to reinforce, well, I'm really good at holding people down, so I'll just keep holding people down. I'm like, that's okay for now, but at a higher level, that shit don't work.
Again, as a bigger player, I don't enjoy that. I pull guard all the time. I pull guard most of the time. And sometimes some people tell me, well, you're so big, I don't understand why you're not just like trying to double leg somebody. And I'm like, because that's no fun for me. Number one, it kind of comes across as the person small, that I'm the bully. And then what am I going to do? Like, get to side control, be on top of them. They're not going to be able to get out from underneath me unless they've got really great guard retention. And that's not because I'm amazing. I'm just a lot bigger than the average person in my class. So I pull guard. I feel like I'm giving them the advantage. Attack me. Let me work off of my back, which I enjoy doing. And I'm not the bully. Now, go ahead. I'm giving you every opportunity to advance on me and do what you're worried about me doing to you. So, I don't know. Guard pullers unite.
Yeah. It's how about the new batch of? I also feel like obviously I haven't done it as long as you guys. I think I'm over 3 years now. But the quality. Oh, thank you. The quality. I think the quality of new guy, even since I've started, has gone up. Just like fresh out of the whatever. I don't know what's going on.
I had a couple of white belts at the fight the other night. I hosted the UFC at my house, and a couple of the white belts, they were like, I'm like, you know, you guys are getting really good. And then they let it out that they've been doing privates with one of the coaches. And I'm like, I found your secret. I was like, there's something different.
They just love it.
Well, there was something different about their jiu-jitsu, but it goes hand in hand with what you just said. I think that it's different now. People they know they can seek out the information, whether it's on the internet, which isn't so taboo anymore at all. And again, they know, like, let me do privates. I want to get better. I want to learn this thing.
I think honestly, it's as simple as, if you've ever done jiu-jitsu and have loved jiu-jitsu, the first thing you do is like, how do I get better at this quicker?
Yeah.
And you're like, you start eating better, you start stretching, you start gathering information, and then you're just like, oh, and then you start being, you stop lying to yourself, and then you recognize, like, oh, these are the gaping holes in my game. And then like, now it's just more, dude, we have blue belts in my gym that, I mean, I've seen with my own eyes crush higher belts, and like, not like we're playing matches, like for real matches, but like there's blue belts that teach privates, and you'll get a decent class out of them now.
By the way, shout out to Marcelo Garcia. The only instructional that I've ever purchased was his North-South instructional. Everything else is just online, or I do have like the Grappler's Guide. Yeah. Only instructional I ever purchased. When I was a white belt, I did my first tournament, and I wound up like laying on this guy's face, and he tapped because my belly was on his face, and he was like, freaked out.
You know that's the rage now, by the way. Smother tap that's what Gordon's teaching now. And
as everybody called it North-South, and I had like, oh, nobody's taught me this thing. We just wound up in this position, and I was holding him down, and I went and I went on YouTube and looked for North-South, and there's this little tiny guy showing all the dynamic. I'm like, oh, I wasn't on his neck. I'm just like laying on his face. And I've just studied that video on YouTube for so long. There's one really good video, like I think it's a 10-minute video of him going over it just in his class. And then finally, like years later, I'm like, I need more. I need more like the little technical things. And I purchased that instructional. Only one that I've ever purchased. And I love, that's absolutely my go-to move. So much that my instructor goes, really, Mel? Like, he'll be walking by, he'll be like, oh, really? Like,
that's his move.
Original Mel, like he really gets on me about it.
Knuckles.
But I do love that move. But let's get into some of the listener questions. You want to pull up one of the listener questions that we had?
I got it memorized.
You got it memorized?
Yep, I'm that good.
You know who you know the person?
I don't know the guy.
Well, you have to say the guy's name.
She knows the guy.
Oh, okay. All right, let's do it.
Because I don't even know how to say the question, because it's your last name. What's the meaning of your last name #D?
Kwok. Oh, okay. I know that somebody asked, what is the meaning of
Kwok?
Of Kwok. Okay.
So this is Shane's doing. Shout out to Shane McCarthy.
My plan worked out.
Okay.
Doubter.
So Shane is our black belt, and Shane's a gem. He's been with us for a while, and he does a lot around the school, and he's also just incredibly passionate about learning. And Shane likes to think he's a funny guy. Haha. And so
you laughed, just saying.
I don't know what happened one day, but I think somebody was walking off the mats and they looked a little sad, a little dejected. And he's walking by them and he goes, "Oh, what happened? Did you get quacked?" And one of two things happens when you get quacked. I've either verbally or physically assaulted you.
I like it.
So,
explain, please.
Sometimes Emily goes into greater detail when we're talking about things, and maybe I talk around you and above you and below you, and then you feel really bad about what you said or what you've done, and we make a little joke about it. Or, for some people, they don't like they don't like getting stuck under my mount. Or I have one of my other students in the school, Colin, who, I don't know if you're familiar with Pokemon, but
very much so.
He has given me a nickname of I am Diglett.
Diglett. I don't know.
Well, Diglett is actually a Pokemon that looks like three Pokemon. They're like these little brown things that stick out of the ground.
Okay. They're like dirt mounds. They're like dirt mounds that come up out of the ground.
Yeah.
Now,
but that's one Pokemon, which makes you think how weird it must look below ground. But just go ahead.
So why am I Diglett? Well, because when we play, he likes to try and get under the legs a lot, and I don't let him. I sit very low to the ground when I pass, and I have a decent amount of base. So sometimes, you know, I frustrate people with these things. And so then they're like, did you get quacked? So now it's become a thing. I even made a shirt about it to make fun of myself. Yeah, it's good fun. It's good
so
fun.
How does it feel to be a verb?
Yeah, you're in your own gym.
I've always wanted that.
I'm probably a lot of things, but yeah, you know, it feels it's kind of fun. It's kind of fun. As long as people are laughing with me, I'm good.
Next time you come to the gym, just if you see me tap somebody, be like, "Did you get Uncle Miltied?"
I don't know. Let me go back to my think
in my life.
Let me go back to my think tank. I think I could work on that name a little bit.
All right, we have another question, and then we're going to get into what we call our drill down. But I have a question from Erin Del Baggio.
Ooh.
Do you know her by any chance? No?
I think I do.
Okay. I'm a brown belt who's trained consistently and hard for 10 years, and I am now 5 months pregnant. I'm finding it hard to stay relevant while adjusting to a reduced level of intensity while training. Any suggestions for continuing to progress and learn while training with reduced mobility and intensity?
Oh, yes. We've done this 3 times.
Oh, boy.
I've become big and fat 3 times and had to lose all the weight and watch everybody get better while I sucked gas. And gosh, so every pregnancy is different. And I will say I am not a doctor, so by no means take this as medical advice. However, you know, I think it's really difficult for us as women who have put a lot of time into jiu-jitsu to become pregnant and to slowly lose our ability to do things. And I'll also add to have other people tell us that we shouldn't do those things, right? Like all of a sudden it's not your body anymore in multiple ways. You have to host this little being that's inside of you and make it safe for them. But pregnancy makes people feel all sorts of things. And I trained through all 3 of my pregnancies as much as I could. Each subsequent pregnancy affected me more and more. So I was not able to train as long with each one. But I did my best. And I always liked to think that healthy mom equals healthy baby. So it wasn't just a matter of physical wellness for me. It was really about mental wellness. It was my outlet. And so the more I wasn't able to move, the more it affected me. So to Erin and to any other struggling moms out there, soon to be moms out there, there is going to come a point where training with a belly is not going to be easy, and it might not be safe. I don't want to speak for everybody because we all carry differently, but at some point, you're going to be carrying an extra 20 or 30 pounds on your front side, which greatly affects your base. And so what I did with my first child, I did not do with my last child. With my first child, Saya, I was deadlifting 218 pounds and squatting 185 until 2 weeks before I gave birth. I was also still training and teaching and, you know, moving around. But my hips weren't the same with my other pregnancies. And so what I always did with each one was, as I started approaching the second trimester, I would, and Erin, you're sort of in the middle of it right now, I would start to find other types of activities that would keep my mobility or my fitness level up. So I always have worked out or done something complementary to jiu-jitsu. Sometimes it meant that I would sort of transfer the balance of my time into doing those things. And then when I would come to jiu-jitsu, it would be more like studying technique, maybe drilling some things, or studying some technique and maybe teaching some things, because I found that by the time I was about 5-6 months pregnant, it made other people uncomfortable for me to train with them. So my husband would train with me, and I had a few select women, but I remember distinctly training with one guy who, you know, we were moving lightly. He wasn't powering through anything, but I started feeling bad because my baby belly was making them super self-conscious. Right. So it's a really tricky time being pregnant. So Erin, I would say find some other mobility activities that have something to do with jiu-jitsu that might help you get your jollies out in terms of movement. Maybe identify some safe training partners, people that you feel good about, people that feel good about training with you and who have some self-control so that they know how to move with you. And you may come to a point where you just want to drill and move around because it feels safer. But I would say start thinking about those things now so that you don't allow your pregnancy to dictate what you can and can't do when you all of a sudden can't do it anymore, right? Like that's a depressing time when all of a sudden you're like, oh, I can't do this. Now what? Start thinking about it now and get yourself into the routine of doing those things. That is another podcast project that I've half completed. I'm doing a 5-episode series on moms in jiu-jitsu. So women who have either been pregnant, are moms, but also competing or carrying on careers with children, because there is not a lot of information out there and for active women doing this sort of thing. And I get asked all the time by expecting parents like, hey, how do I handle this? So I've already interviewed Karen Antunes and Anna Carolina Schmidt and Rachel Morrison. And I have a couple other guests that I'm going to be working with, but I want to provide that resource just to give people other examples of how you can do pregnancy and jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that's two things. First of all, I really like what you just said. It's really refreshing just because I like to think as humans as a very, very old species. And 30,000 years ago, pregnant women were doing way tougher things, and we're here now. I also grew up in a house, mom, 2 sisters, and, single mom, 3 kids. It's like, women are tough.
She had to fight for her life.
Yeah, fight for your life. And so I really like that approach. And also just when it doesn't feel safe, we do have the luxury of, jiu-jitsu is a luxury. So, like, you don't have to go out there and hurt yourself.
1,000%. But I think it is a little bit of... I don't know if it's right to say it's a little bit of a sickness that like our privilege in some ways has made us too comfortable or too okay with like not pursuing the things that make us feel alive.
That's
right?
everyone.
Like,
that's everybody.
Right? Like, yeah, you don't need to do that. Well, how about I want to do that? And how about
exactly.
Don't tell me what I can do.
When you said that when you were competing as a blue belt in the absolute, it's like, I want to be here. If you would have said that to me and it was a comp, and I would have been like, all right, you get the smoke, because this isn't the training room. That's how it goes down. And then my second thing that I want to say was, if a pregnant lady passes your guard, is it 6 points? Like, how does it? Because that's 2.
That's awesome.
And if you win, like you win twice.
I told you, I love his sense of humor. I love having him here.
You have him there for a reason. I see.
Not only is he a great person, and he's got great jiu-jitsu.
I also just like doing this. This is fun. I get to talk. I get different perspectives. I'm like some guy who just started doing jiu-jitsu 3 years ago. You guys are talking about like you're over a decade.
How many people have you seen come and go though in that time?
Quite a bit. Yeah. They keep signing that waiver though. Them white belts.
He's got this thing about smashing white belts, but that in and of itself is
it's a joke because I'm a pretty nice guy.
He did say something really funny earlier. I got to share this. So he said, he says, I'm feeling really good about my jiu-jitsu lately. Yeah. And he goes, maybe that's because there's a lot of white belts on their trial
a lot
week.
Of white belts. I've been like, man, I feel like my jiu-jitsu is getting kind of decent, man. And then like 3 seconds later, I'm thinking as to like I haven't even put any thought to it. I just like kind of been in, you go through grooves. I've been in long enough to been through the like, oh, I suck really bad, and just different levels.
There's nothing like a trial guy to boost your ego.
You know what? Underrated, guilty pleasure.
He's actually said before, this is an ongoing joke because he's actually said before, we've talked about like the new guy and the trial is like, no, I smashed them. They get smashed like everyone else.
I'm just being a contrarian.
He's messing around.
But you know what? I've actually gotten my fair share of they put me with the white belt thing, but they know that if they're cool, I'm cool. But if they're not, they know that I could.
That you're gonna
not mess them up.
Yeah,
but just let them know that like you don't know what you don't know. You know what I'm saying?
I used to be that guy.
Yeah,
it was like put that new guy with Milton just in case this guy's coming here.
I've got my fair share of the guy who's like the SWAT guy who tries to like Uchimata you,
but he's a white belt.
But doesn't know it. Just like they're going off of like they watch Rambo 3 times.
He has a lot of law enforcement. Practitioners who are in law enforcement, active law enforcement.
Even at Felipe's gym, I've gotten put with some wild guys, you know? And it's like,
You
gonna
put the cuffs on me?
Hey, you signed that waiver, buddy. You're gonna get it.
Let's get it, bro. What's the next segment here?
The drill down.
There we go. We have the sound with high level here.
You guys are so fancy. This
Yeah.
is like the fanciest podcast I've ever been on.
Hold on,
All right,
as I
so
sip my mouth.
we've got we call this segment the drill down. We've got a couple.
Who
You don't
named
have.
that?
You can elaborate
Was he
on
at the
this.
fight?
Justin actually suggested
The red shirt?
we had a listener suggest a name for this segment because I used to call it the speed round, and I'm like, this is longer than the whole podcast sometimes.
Yeah.
So we called it the drill down. So okay, so I'm going to go down these. You may elaborate, and we'll maybe throw in some follow-up questions as well. But preference: gi or no gi?
Shit. Do you actually have to give a real clear yes or no?
No.
answer?
No, that's what I said. You can absolutely elaborate.
Okay,
That's why we
okay.
changed it. That's why
We've
we
had
changed the name.
people tell us to fuck off, both. You know.
So, how shall I approach this conversation? So I started in the gi. There's a part of me that loves the gi and like loves the tradition of the gi. It's probably what I gravitate to more, naturally in. However, I started fighting no gi because when I was coming up, sometimes there was nobody left to fight in the gi, and the only way I could get more fights and get better was to take my gi off and go fight no gi. This was not just per competition, but sometimes this was, like go fight MMA, go do the submission grappling. When I lived in Japan, it was a big thing. So I slowly started to appreciate no gi in a way because I found that it complemented my gi. So gi jiu-jitsu for me felt like it could be very technical and beautiful, but then the no gi would make it a lot more explosive and fun and fast, right? Sometimes when I'm deeply in the gi, I actually don't like the no gi. Like I'm too far out of the element. If it's a spectrum, I'm like way too far on the end of the gi spectrum. And then there's other times where I start to ramp up on no gi, and then I get away from doing the gi. So it's always a little bit of a back and forth. I respect both tremendously. I enjoy training both, but my gravitation to one or the other sort of fluctuates with time.
Okay. We'll
the
take that
hand,
answer.
the hand of the no-gi kid gets dropped down the cliff.
I don't know what does that mean. What does
No,
that-
you ever heard it's like you're holding this and this in a hand over a cliff, and you have to let one go. That scenario.
Yeah. Oh, gotcha. Okay. All right. Same thing. Preference: takedown or pull guard?
Again, this is, man, you guys you're getting me here. So takedown or pull guard. Traditionally, I've always taken down. I came up in a time where I think takedowns were more on trend. But in I actually never pulled guard in competition until I was a black belt. Fun fact. Because I just never trusted it that much. I always had a guard game, but I just didn't do it a ton. And when I started training at Marcelo's, Tachi said, you should try to pull guard sometime. And so I worked on some X guard pulls and different things. And I'm not sure why I've always trusted my takedown game more, because I'm certainly not an expert. However, I occasionally train with different people. And one of my friends and training partners is Junie Ocasio from Unity.
We've had Junie on.
Yeah,
We've had Junie on the
Junie's a good dude.
The Cookie Monster.
We've become great friends, and he's teaching me a lot of awesome jiu-jitsu. And he said to me before I went to Masters, we were working together, and he said, you know what, Em? He's like, don't forget that you can pull guard too. And he's like, you actually have better hips than I think you realize. And he goes, don't forget that you can pull guard too. And I think back to the fact that competitively, from white belt to purple belt, I rarely lost. And although that might seem like a great thing, when you win, I feel like at the time, and maybe even still, you don't always learn a lot from winning, because when you win, it almost reinforces the pattern of just keep doing whatever you're doing because you're winning, and that's awesome. And so my pattern was take down, pass the guard, finish from side control over and over and over again. And I was really good at doing that, but it became a hardened path for me. And when I was a brown belt, I fought someone and I got outclassed. I felt in guard work. And so now when I think about fighting, I think about how much I've learned over my losses, because they've helped me see these other holes or areas in my game that I could develop more. And so, Junie didn't say that to me because my guard game sucked, but he was like, hey, like, you should trust your guard a little bit more. So that tournament, the Masters that just passed, I found myself pulling guard a lot because I just kind of had his voice in the back of my head. So it is something I need to utilize more, something that I trust now. But for whatever reason, it was just kind of hard lined inside of me to try to always take down.
It's funny. I'm going to be launching an episode tomorrow morning with Gannon Lang. Gannon Lang said, he goes, I didn't really even start to learn takedowns till I was a brown belt. He came from a guard pulling world, so it's kind of that, it's like just like a different, just a different time, a different.
Well, I think the time that I started learning jiu-jitsu, it was still very much like the Gracies had such a heavy influence in it, and it was still more self-defense to jiu-jitsu as opposed to sport jiu-jitsu everything, right? And like the people that have started in the last 5 to 8 years, like guard playing has become so popular that people are like, oh, why do you need to take down? But so I like knowing that I can do both. When I show up to a competition now, part of my mantra, like part of my affirmation consists of like, give me anything you got. I got a fucking answer for anything, right? Like, you want to stand? Let's stand. You want to pull guard? Let's fucking pull guard.
Iron Chef.
So, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, man.
Here's a different one for you. Music during rolling. Yes or no? You guys have the radio blasted?
While we're rolling, yes. When I'm teaching, I don't like it.
Okay.
When I'm teaching, I feel like it makes my brain kind of get a bit scattered. So I like to turn the music off or on pause when I'm teaching, but when we're drilling or when we're training, absolutely.
What's your go-to?
Oh, fuck. Well, I think if you were to ask my students, they would probably tell you it would be Pacific Northwest grunge, 1990 through 1996.
Whoa. So is it raining in there? I need to design a special edition flannel gi. Oh my gosh, I would buy that. I'm a huge fan of flannel.
It would look, that would be cool. It would look like really look like pajamas, right?
It's a restaurant next to your gym called Emo's Pizza.
That's like Pearl Jam times, right? Pearl Jam.
Yeah, Pearl Jam,
Nirvana.
Yeah.
Alice in Chains.
Alice in Chains.
I'm from Vancouver.
The Rooster.
Yeah. I'm a 90s kid. I'm like 90s. I get like back in the 90s, I probably didn't listen to that music as much as I do now. Like, I knew it, I listened to it, but if I was in the car, I was just like, no, gotta be tough. Let's put on the hip hop and, Dre or something.
Well, you're West Coast, right? You weren't West Coast.
East Coast.
You were in Miami.
New York. No, I grew up in New York. I'm from New York. I grew up on Long Island, so we were wannabe city kid. We were wannabe city tough. Like, what? I know who Slick Rick is.
Slick Rick.
A little bit of Chris Cornell never hurt anybody.
Yeah.
And,
rest in peace.
Yeah, so that would probably be my student's first pick on like, oh yeah, Emily always listens to this. Second best would probably be like club music 1999 through 2004.
Nice. That's my style.
All right,
little like Ashanti,
like R&B, like 90s R&B. Listen, that's all.
That's my style.
When my wife and we went to New York and we watched. There was a concert. We watched Jagged Edge, 112. Like that. They did a whole concert.
Stuff people.
My wife actually it was like Brian McKnight was the headliner. But he was so not like really that era of like that hip hop R&B.
Yeah.
He came on at the end and people were leaving, but that's who my wife wanted to see. That was like her favorite.
Early Jay-Z, Dirt Off Your Shoulder, like all that.
Early Jay-Z.
Yeah, that's my go-to in the car. Like
that's
I'm like
blueprint.
Siri, play some 90s R&B, or I'll get into some like 90s hip hop. But when you ask Siri for 90s hip hop, it mixes in too much West Coast stuff like that I just didn't listen to.
Tupac,
like Too Short and
Too Short's not West Coast. He's from Michigan. He's from Detroit.
It's like kind of like that. It's not East Coast.
Yeah,
it's not
that's Midwest.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nobody ever says.
And you don't like
remember that?
Yeah, you
remember
don't like
that Midwest beef with?
Well, my wife's from Toledo, Ohio, so yeah, I do.
We just lost all our Midwestern listeners.
Hey, man, no, go Bucks. Michigan sucks.
All right, our next question is: I'm always curious about this because I know we both we watch a lot of stuff, and obviously these days with the internet, you can just go down a rabbit hole of watching.
I wanted to touch on the internet stuff though.
Do you watch mixed martial arts? Do you watch BJJ? Are you somebody that's going home and gotta see the WNO on Friday or the Fight to Win? Are you that type of person? Or are you like, no, I'm doing that at the office. I'm coming home to get away from that.
So I have never been someone who has been like a gigantic fan of the sport. Shame, I know. But I will say that I think it's fairly because I've been actively doing the sport. So, a little example here. My husband is a huge fan of jiu-jitsu. And when I used to work for Gracie magazine years ago when it was a magazine, and when it first came to the United States in 2007. So Jerry and I went to the Pan Ams in California, and I was working with Luca Atala. Luca had to go to the bathroom, or he went somewhere. And I was standing at the table with the magazines, and Kira Gracie and Tarsis Humphreys and all these big athletes started coming up, and they would look at the magazines and they would want to take magazines. And so they'd be like, Emily, is Luca here? And I'd be like, oh no, he just left. He'll be right back. And they're like, okay, I'll be right back. So they would come and go and come and go. Every time they came and went, Jerry would look at me and be like, oh fuck, do you know who that is? I'm like, nope. I don't know. And he's like, that's so-and-so. And he goes, this is your homework. You should know this stuff because you work for Gracie magazine. I was like, I don't really care. I was like, if they treat me like an asshole at the table or in the bullpen, they're just an asshole in my books. I was like, I don't really care. But I will say that now with, and I used to watch a lot of UFC when it first came out, and they used to have one event every 2 or 3 months. I would watch Shamrock and Tito Ortiz and all those guys.
Them days.
But then when they started having events every goddamn week, I was like, I don't even know any of the fighters anymore because there's so many of them. The turnover is so high. But I do like to watch friends. So if I have a friend or someone that I'm working with in a coaching relationship, and they're going to be competing in a big event, I do my best to watch them because it's important for me to see them do well.
Okay. Follow-up question. What's a magazine?
Yeah. Okay. It's where you put the bullets.
It goes with cassettes. It goes along with...
Oh, yeah. You're in Florida.
Yeah. It's the Wild West down here. Whether you like it or not, you better carry.
We're like Sweden, almost every citizen has a gun.
So you like to watch Friends. Who are some of your favorite competitors to watch? Let's name drop a little bit.
Okay, so let's see. Listen, I was so impressed by ADCC this year. I was a little salty too. Can I just admit I was a little salty?
What are you salty about?
Because when we competed in ADCC in 2007, there was no TV screen, no internet for them to broadcast our images. We had a piece of paper that had cut out black and white photocopies of our faces pasted on it.
Yeah.
We had no jumpsuits, no fireworks. People were getting mugged in Trenton. We've come a long way since 2007. So it was just incredible to see what a production ADCC was this year and the celebrity of jiu-jitsu, and just thinking, wow, you know what? This makes the case for some athletes being able to say, rightly so, some of the athletes had also, Amy Campo said, this is what I've been working for my entire life, right? For this moment. And I just think that it's so rad that we have grapplers that can say, I want to do that. And you know what? If they do it, they actually have a career where they can make money at it. I did not come from a generation where you actually could make money from it. You're still hard to make money from it, but they could train full time and do it. So I was so impressed watching ADCC. That was one event that I did watch. I love the Rotullo brothers. I think they're super fun and exciting to watch. But even more so, the thing that makes me more excited is I don't know them personally, but they seem to have just such a great positive energy for jiu-jitsu. They don't fucking do foul ass things that, hopefully never will, but I don't know their background.
They're building a school in Costa Rica right now.
Yeah, I know. They're just doing so many fun things.
They want to surf and do jiu-jitsu.
Yep. And I love that they bring that playfulness to jiu-jitsu, and they keep it fun, they keep it real, and exciting. And I love that about them. I was so impressed with Amy Campo. So impressed, like just what laser focus that woman has. I loved watching Fionn. I was
Fionn's
recently
ridiculous.
in the UK, and I had a conversation. I was on the podcast with Daniel Strauss from the Raspberry Ape, and he had, being that they're from the UK, he'd interviewed her a couple times, and it's just so cool to see someone who has come after my time, and like that what they can learn in jiu-jitsu and how well they can do it, that they've been able to condense that time and do it at such a high level. So I'm a big fan of hers. Like, I think that's awesome.
Shout out to her. Can I just say, well, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt, but when I go on YouTube now and I'm looking for a move, she's in like the top 3 search. I think that's great.
That's so cool.
It's just a different time because of the exposure that she's gotten. I think she's already done something on Grappler's Guide. She's done a whole bunch of instructionals. Maybe she did some of those before. I didn't see them, but like it's definitely top 3 in the feed. She's one of the 3 in the feed when you look for anything these days.
That finals match against Saint Marie, like also just her too. And she's from Canada.
Don't steal my thunder. I was holding my homegirl for last.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm a huge fan. Because they're both super tenacious, especially when it comes to their takedown game.
Yeah.
Is ridiculous.
Well, okay. So giving it up for more ladies, but like Brianna St. Marie, I've never met her personally. I really hope to. She's from Canada. Woo woo.
America's
what a fucking silent killer that woman is. And actually that's the other thing that I respect so much about these 3 women in particular. I don't know for certain, but it seems very rightly so. They don't seem to be juiced up on anything. They are, all 3 of them are extremely humble. None of them go around talking shit about anybody else or puffing their own, chests up. They won because they were just fucking good. And I love that. And I think it's such a and same with the Rotula brothers. It's just such a positive message to send. Just do what you're good at and shut up. And it speaks for itself.
Yeah. And they're also good to follow on Instagram because it's not a thirst trap, which makes it difficult as a dude who's a fan of jiu-jitsu and like have a family and I'm scrolling. It's just like, oh my God, I can't follow half of them, bro. Because it's just like, all right.
I have to go, honey, it's jiu-jitsu. I follow her because it's jiu-jitsu.
I don't.
It. Look, let me go to her page and show you. It's all jiu-jitsu. Oops. Oh, no. Okay, wait. Forget it. No, it's not.
I'm like your husband. I'm like a super fan of the UFC. I watch Pride. I watch old school UFC. I watch Cage Wars. I watch Invicta. I watch everything. Like, I watch a lot of the promotions. And I have like a metric or like a rule with myself that's like when I follow somebody, girl, guy, whatever, as soon as the page turns from the thing that I like, jiu-jitsu, fighting, wrestling, sambo, whatever I'm watching, to thirst trap or like I'm selling timeshares or like I'm out.
Yeah.
That's good.
It's a weird thing. But,
they're trying to make their money. It's tough to it's such a young sport too. Like, it's good. You got guys who are finally making, 6, 7 figures, not 7, 6, 5, 6 figures for a match, and getting sponsor money and being able to open their own gyms and we have there's a new wave of jiu-jitsu, and they're younger and they're smarter, man. But like,
do you like the change?
That's
that you
part
see?
of it. That's part of I think that's what I don't like about the change is that the business is driven by the clickiness and you got to do it this way and you got to
show your booty or
you got to make a face in your thumbnail so people will click on it because psychologically more people look at that. Like, I just don't like it.
How do you feel about how things have changed?
Oh man, I got a lot of thoughts on that. I will say that I think that, we've become an increasingly externally oriented society where it's not really about ourselves. It's about what entertains us and what the crowd's into. And we're super socialized to be conditioned to follow those things. It's very difficult for someone to not be wrapped up in all of that. I do think quality speaks for itself. It might be a slower rise to not engage in all that. Like, for example, I don't use Instagram properly. I know this. I'm totally okay with it. I don't like taking videos of myself everywhere. I can't just, be selling products and trying to get everybody, like I just don't do it. I started using social media a long time ago just to keep in touch with my friends and family around the world. And I largely kind of keep that up, except now it includes people that follow what I do. But I don't do what I do to get more clicks, and I don't do what I do to attract more followers. I kind of figure if what I'm doing resonates with you and I'm internally directed in what I'm doing, then maybe we're going to work together. And for me, that's worked out really well. But I would say that I came at a time where your reputation had to precede you. Now you have people that are full of shit that are, I have 50,000, Instagram followers, and look at what I can do. And I'm just like, what are you doing that has any value in jiu-jitsu?
I mean, it goes back to what we said before, right? Just because somebody has a certain color belt or a certain amount of stripes, it doesn't make them a good person. It doesn't make them have more knowledge. It just means that they have that color belt with that many stripes. You have to dig a little deeper.
It's not about jiu-jitsu at that point. They're just making money. That's what I'm saying. It's just they're just making money. Like, I don't even blame them for that.
Can I say this is a good point to just kind of mention personally? One of the reasons that I named this Jiu-Jitsu Dummies was because I never wanted anybody to think that I was sitting up here and I wanted to be the dummy. I wanted us to be talking to somebody. We want to learn. We want to absorb because we know nothing. And Jiu-Jitsu Idiots was a little too strong. So we went with Jiu-Jitsu Dummies for the play on the word and the play on grappling dummies and things like that. But that was on purpose because I never wanted to feel like that. Like, oh, well, let's get on the mat and see what you really got. And you get I would never wanted it to be that. It was truly us just wanting to talk about jiu-jitsu and learn something from the guests, whether it's hearing cool stories about the history of jiu-jitsu or where they trained or Marcelo or this or that, right? Like, that's always what we wanted to do, and never wanted it to be like about us. We talk about ourselves and we talk about our personal stuff, but I purposely wanted to name it something self-deprecating so that we were never perceived like that. And if anybody, I've never gotten a message that anybody says, hey, get off your high. And if they did, I'd be like, you realize you're watching a show or listening to a show called Jiu-Jitsu Dummies. And right? So come on. I'm sorry.
You played yourself.
I just kind of wanted to throw that in there.
But, so I do think that, we're in an interesting time where I'm not sure that we know that what we're getting is real quality all the time, right?
Yeah.
But you were also saying about needing to make money. I do question what these athletes that are coming up value. Is it exposure? Is it making money? Is it just being good at jiu-jitsu? Because does every athlete who starts practicing jiu-jitsu really want to open up a school? Or are we conditioned to think that that's what you're supposed to do when you've made it, right? Are we looking at a future where maybe there are some athletes that have the opportunity to be really good at jiu-jitsu and to continue just being really good at jiu-jitsu? Because the responsibility of owning a school and mentoring others is a big responsibility that not everybody wants. But I think some of us get pushed into because we go, oh, well, this is the natural path. This is what I'm supposed to do. But I do think we're kind of starting to see an age where maybe there will be more mainstream interest, or there will be enough captured interest in the jiu-jitsu community to help propel some athletes into full-time athletic careers, as opposed to having to do something that they might not want to do, right? Because I see a lot of the money grabbing too, because you see athletes in transition, they don't want to compete anymore, or they've kind of aged out, and then they go, well, what am I going to do next? And it's just like, well, let me sell protein powder, and let me make some booty shaking videos on TikTok. Let me start an OnlyFans account. Let me do this. Let me do that. And it's like, well, what is your plan really? Do you have one? I don't think you do.
I want a professional jiu-jitsu league so bad. I just do.
I think one championship is kind of getting there and giving us that in that shell of MMA.
I want like IBJJF to have a professional IBJJF, where USADA's involved, where there's weight classes, there's a standard uniform. The money's not there to do it, but I wish it was, because it's
I don't think it's about money. I think it's about qualified leadership.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of people not talk very nicely about certain organizations, and because of how they handle their funds, or even what their vision is.
Well, I don't even think it's about IBJJF or this organization or that organization. And I'll say this, I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but I recently met somebody in the jiu-jitsu community who has very strong, let's say, management and ethical qualifications from other highly respected and visible industries that is now connected to jiu-jitsu. And we started talking about what we might potentially do to raise the bar of professionalism within the sport for everybody. And we don't see it as a movement or something that we would create to compete with any of the organizations that are already established. Be what you want to think of the IBJJF or ADCC or whatever the organization is.
ADCC is pretty pro.
But
it's
if we have,
close as you could get.
Right. But if we have something that sort of helps everybody get behind, I don't know if regulating might be too strong of a word, but just raising the bar on how we treat one another and how the sport grows. Like, how is this bad for anybody? Right. So I say that with like, I don't think it's like calling other organizations out for bad leadership. I just think that sometimes we can learn a lot from some of the other professional sports that exist.
Something different.
And I think we're just at the point where we might start to see some of that getting integrated.
I hope it happens.
What about at the school level? Because you're talking about at the competitor level, right?
No, I'm talking about at all levels.
Okay, because I was going to go back to our earlier conversation about what has to change at the school level, because there's really there's no governing body or any regulations that you have to follow other than the typical business regulations that you have to follow in your state or county or city, right? It is kind of a free-for-all. Anybody can open up a jiu-jitsu academy or a martial arts academy. Let's include it all. Anybody can open up an academy and call themselves a professor or a sensei. Does that need to change? Can it change? Is that even possible?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Like you see the IBJJF, they're sort of privately funded, but like you see them trying to organize some things, right? So like even let's just something as simple as black belts. So you had to be a black belt before you could give out a black belt. Now you have to be a second degree black belt to give out a black belt. Now you have to be a third degree black belt to get. So there's one organization that's doing something to sort of qualify rank, right? And then there's the bigger question of like, well, now we have to do background checks to get this rank and to do that. But like, what does that mean about the school? Because a lot of bad things can happen in schools. So who regulates all of that and who cares? And for the time being, I think it's been just so variable and again, lineage based, right? Like a lot of behavior is passed down because somebody said it was okay. And then they created a bunch of followers that then perpetuated the same type of behavior. Well, I think as the sport has grown, it's now being practiced outside of Brazil. It's practiced in the United States, in Australia, all parts of Europe. It's popping up in other parts of the world as well, right? India. So what I'm talking about is a way in which we can create more inclusivity and safety, and fairness amongst the people who actually want to practice it, and for all of us to hold those common values. I think for the time being, I don't think we've even articulated the values very well. It's just been about making money or surviving, right? And now I think we're at a point where maybe the conversation can evolve to things that will help the whole sport and the whole business grow for everybody. I do think that things like this have to be opt-in. Like I think when things get too tightly regulated, it automatically starts to repel or exclude certain people. So I would love to see something that's organized that pulls people together because everybody wants to do better, right? Whether it's in performance or, they want to make more money or they want to have a bigger school. Everybody wants to do better. So that's where I'd like to see it all go. So
it kind of flows into my next question, and maybe you just answered it. What is your ultimate goal in the world of jiu-jitsu?
It's so funny you should ask this because I think, I said earlier, like I just do, like I don't always know what I'm doing. And I think that I reckon that most people are in this seat most of the time. They don't know what they're doing all the time. But I know that I've always been drawn to doing certain things. I like to collaborate. I guess I like to lead because I'm always doing something in that capacity. I like to break barriers, I like to make people feel good about what they're doing. And I like people to know that that their dream is possible, right? You can succeed. If I could succeed, you could succeed. I never started out thinking that I was going to be anybody in this sport or be a world champion or any of that. So, I want people to see all of those things. And I think I've tried to express that in various ways, whether it was as an individual, as a school owner, as somebody who leads camps and seminars with one of my other partners, Hanette Stack, and now Jazari Matuda. We've done it in so many different capacities. And I had a really, really inspiring call earlier today with someone who, as I said, has some juice and qualifications to, I think, like raise the level of what we do altogether as a sport. And I don't think I've ever felt so aligned and so excited to spearhead something to pull the entire community together. And so I think that really, like, I've tried to check all the boxes, right? So I've been a competitor, I've been a student, I've been a teacher, I've been a business owner, I've worked for a magazine, I've refereed. I've tried to check all the boxes in all the various categories, in some ways maybe to try to make me a little bulletproof, so that when this mission comes, people can't point their fingers and say, well, you don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Because I do now. Now I do, right? Like, I've done all of this shit. I've done what you've done and I've done what they've done. And from seeing the jiu-jitsu world so broadly, I want to take that level of experience I have in all these different arenas to do something that will level our game up as a whole. Little too early to fully describe exactly what's going on, but because it's still in the early stages, but I think it's going to be something big. I hope it's something that everybody else is motivated to do. And I want to make jiu-jitsu a safer, more inclusive and fair place for everyone. So that's something I'm very excited about focusing my attention on.
Please come back and talk to us about that when you can let the cat out of the bag.
Yeah, I will. I mean, we're in early stages, but I will say that like attracts like, I think it's really cool that people with these kinds of qualifications and experience have come out of the woodwork to say, hey, like, I like what you do. Maybe we can work together. And I'm like, fuck yes. I've been waiting for you, because awesome. I tell you, there's been so many people over the years that are like, can you do something about this? Can you say something about that? You're a leader. People will listen to you. And it's not that I don't want to help, and it's not that I don't believe them, but sometimes I don't think it's the right time for us to pull that trigger. And sometimes I feel like I'm not qualified enough. Like I'm waiting for more information, or I'm waiting for more, context, whatever it might be. And I really do feel like we're starting to hit the tip of the spear, and jiu-jitsu is big enough where it's going to matter, I think jiu-jitsu is ready for us to organize it in a more sophisticated way. And I think up until now, it hasn't been. I mean, I often refer to jiu-jitsu as a gutter sport because of all the terrible, shitty things that happen within it. So I'm hoping that whatever it is that we do will save and spare people from some of my negative experiences, some of your negative experiences. There's a lot that we can do better, and it's time that we start doing that.
Miguel has your very last question.
It's a pretty important one.
Biggie.
Okay.
It's a big one.
Do you or do you not wash your jiu-jitsu belt?
Oh, well, before I answer that question, what do you think I do?
I think you wash it.
I think you wash it. Hold on. Can I go a little further? I'm going to say, I think that you probably, like a lot of people, didn't wash it in the beginning because you were told not to, but you've smartened up and now you wash your belt.
Leading the witness. Objection.
So, I will admit that I do not.
Dirty.
Thank you for joining us, Emily.
However, in my defense, I will say I have like 10 black belts because
Nobody
I'm
likes
always forgetting them.
Just saying that.
I don't like, I always leave them places. And so I'm always needing one to go to this seminar or pack in my suitcase or at the school. So I have like 10 black belts.
I could relate.
Okay. And, I mean, I guess the defense could be that my belt could still pick up the sweat of others. But if you ask many of my students, they will tell you, Emily doesn't sweat when she trains. I perspire.
Yeah. So you're trying to say something like my wife. She says, I don't sweat, I glisten.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Something like that. That's what you're trying to say. Okay.
And you're from the Pacific
I do. But it just doesn't soak through.
We will not hold it against you. But
not holding anything against you.
Not
that dirty belt.
But
let me tell you, back in the day.
I said I'm not holding anything against you with that dirty belt.
Back in the day when I trained at Henzo's, this is like, 2000, 2001.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys have come across people that did this, but we would wear our gis in the dead heat of New York summer. Okay. So you know what this is like, Milton. 105 degree on concrete, like stank ass New York summer.
I'm not going to lie. I grew up in the wilderness. I grew out way out on Long Island. So concrete jungle.
So you're not real.
I did not live. No.
Yeah. Okay.
No.
I've worked in Soho. I've worked in Soho in the summer.
I visited enough, and I went to see family and things like that. So I do get it. It's hot as shit.
It's hot as shit. Yeah, it's pretty gross outside. There were days that you would hear that there was heat warnings, right? And I trained at Henzo's original school in Manhattan, which was on the 38th floor of a methadone. There was a methadone crack clinic underneath us.
I hear about that a lot.
We just had Coach Mike on.
Yeah. I mean, imagine that. A young woman, a young, impressionable 19, 20-year-old woman walking into this building to train jiu-jitsu. Kind of crazy. Okay. But we would wear I had one Howard gi. I still have it. In my closet. And you would wear the gi in this summer heat with no AC, and you would sweat through it. And there would be puddles of sweat at the end of class.
Porrada.
You would sweat through it with everybody else, take it off, hang it on the locker, leave, and come back the next day and put it back on.
Nice.
And we would do this maybe 4 or 5 times before you would actually take the gi home and wash it.
Yeah.
This is a true story.
I played sports in junior high. I quit before high school. But that's like when I played a little bit of football, and like you took everything off and just threw it in the locker, came back the next day, and like everybody
throw it back on.
Be like, taking deodorant and spraying it on the equipment you were about to put on. Yeah, it's pretty nasty.
But I will say, I'm going to give a shameless plug for a company that I managed to finagle some free samples from. And I'll put this out there for anybody in the jiu-jitsu community that wants to reach out to me, because I'll hook you up with them. But somebody told me, I went to do a seminar in Halifax, and someone's mother told me about how stanky their children's gis were. And so they said, the only thing I use to wash the gear is this detergent called Hex. And I was like, oh, what is that? And I don't know if you guys have used it, but it's not really for gis. It's more for like performance fabrics like spandex and things, for rash guards, sports bras. Yeah. So they're kind of a young company, and I reached out to them and I said, do you like ever work with different groups of people? And they're like, yeah, what did you have in mind? I said, well, jiu-jitsu needs you. And so I started speaking with them, and they sent me like hundreds of free samples and coupons. And then I sent them a list of 15 friends who had schools that also got the same. So if you would like to smell better, or you would like your students to smell better, please reach out to me and let me know.
There you go.
All right.
I like it.
Find out what the hex is going on.
Cleaning up jiu-jitsu from all sides.
All sides.
All
and
sides.
there's no kickback.
Inside, outside.
You're like a born again belt washer.
Yeah, throw that belt in the wash next time you wash
I went to Christian jiu-jitsu school when I was a young boy.
You just shouted out Hex. We'd love to give you a minute to, or as much time as you need to, say hello to anybody, any shout out sponsors. This is your time.
Your gym.
Oh my gosh. Well,
tell us where your gym is and where we can find you on social media.
Oh, yes. Okay. So, my gym is in Princeton, New Jersey. It's Princeton BJJ, if anybody would like to drop by. I didn't say this on the podcast, but I think that, I've tried to cultivate the community in my school to be something that is sustainable, which means that I am not the person at the front of the room all the time. I try to generate opportunities for other people to step up and teach. And I think from working in so many schools over the years and visiting so many schools, sustainable environments where everybody's happy are ones where it's a collaborative environment. Like when the instructor's been the head teacher for too long and they don't want to do it anymore, it's not a fun scene. So if anyone wants to come by, please, our doors are open to everybody. Let's see, what else do I do? I work with Hanette Stack and Jazari Matuda with a company or a group that we call Groundswell Grappling Concepts. We just got back from an incredible BJJ and surf camp that we did in Panama last week. So we're going to be doing some more camps in the coming year. We'll be returning to Panama next year as well. And I got to say, like, the relationship between surf and jiu-jitsu is pretty darn awesome. Just to get into flow and to be a beginner again at something has been super cool. So Hanette and I have been running camps together for quite a long time. And we don't only do women's only events, but we also try to do co-ed events to just set a different norm, of like, guys can come learn from women too, and they can enjoy it. So sure. That's been super fun. Show Your Role has been a great sponsor to me for so many years. As I mentioned Bear earlier, I think he's a true cultural leader. There's something really special about the way he thinks about jiu-jitsu and what he thinks about culture. And I think we need more of that. So they are awesome. I think that's, shout out to my husband, Jerry, for holding down the fort with our crazy children. And my business partner, Art, for holding down the school when I'm out. Yeah, it takes a village, guys, to make anything happen. I'm super grateful for the people that have been here on my journey, and I hope to be there for others.
Very cool.
That's awesome.
Once again, listen, thank you so much. It's been 2 hours. So I have a clock. I don't know if you realize that. It's been 2 hours.
That's whenever.
Yeah. I usually have a timer going. When I barely look at it and I don't really realize what time it is when I know we had a really good podcast and a great guest. Yeah. So
you're extremely articulate.
Thank you so much. Again, listen, I said don't hang up. We're going to come take some pictures, but thank you so much for doing this. We really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
And I hope you had a good time.
I hope I didn't bore you or your listeners.
No, that wasn't boring.
I'm going to say this is a
lot of nuggets.
Probably one of my favorites that we've done. So thank you so much.
Yep.
Sweet. Thanks, dudes.
Thank you very much. You get to meet Bo now.
Thank you to Neutral Zone CBD, a combat family-owned company that supports athletes and the people who love them. Neutral Zone strives to deliver clean CBD products for sports recovery in gummies, lotions, balms, roll-ons, and more. After a competition, a hard rolling session, or a tough day on the job, Neutral Zone has a product designed to help you reduce inflammation, increase cell rejuvenation, and may even help with aging joints. Visit NeutralZoneCBD.com and get 25% off your order with code JJD. And follow them on Instagram too, @MyNeutralZone. Jiu-Jitsu's favorite monthly subscription box has now joined the Jiu-Jitsu Dummies podcast. The BJJ box is delivered to your door filled with premium jiu-jitsu and grappling apparel, equipment, supplements, supplies, snacks, and more. The crew at the BJJ box find the best in the world of jiu-jitsu and guarantee every box to be worth more than the cost. Each box includes 4 to 7 items you're going to love. Visit thebjjbox.com and use code JJD10 to get $10 off your very first box. And give them a follow on Instagram @TheBJJBox. Special thank you to the crew over at Flow and Roll for all their support. Flow and Roll is renowned for their incredible no-gi rash guards, shorts, and leggings. Flow and Roll has quickly become the premier custom apparel provider for academies big and small throughout the United States. Reach out today to discuss your custom order and ask about their incredible pre-order program. You can send an email to flowandroll@gmail.com or visit their Instagram @flow_n_roll and shoot them a direct message. And yes, They can create an awesome custom gi for your academy as well. Visit flowandroll.com to check out their awesome designs, and while you're there, pick up a Jiu-Jitsu Dummy signature tee exclusively at flowandroll.com. And remember, you'll get 20% off your purchase of t-shirts, rash guards, or gis with code JJD.
Great episode.
Yeah, I feel like she's a black belt at talking.
I feel smarter now than when I came here. Why?
Just because she was so smart.
Oh,
you know?
No, I feel like she had a lot of really good things to say, and
good perspectives.
Yeah,
she's an OG black belt. I mean, how many OG black belts have we talked to that we feel the same way afterwards?
And I think that she's not scared to have the tough conversations, and she's not scared to talk a little tough about what needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
Where I think, I know for me, the older I get, the more I'm like, I don't give a fuck what some idiot says, like.
Oh, like I tell you not to worry about. What
I'm not as self-conscious about giving my opinion.
Yeah.
I'm just like, this
You're
is the way
allowed
I think.
to have.
No, but I think there's a certain time, again, we said it during the episode. Like sometimes you're like, oh, you worry too much about what people say, and I'm like, yeah, just kind of trying to be conscious of people's feelings and nice, but.
When it comes to your jiu-jitsu, I mean, you know it pretty well. You've been doing it for a while.
Yeah.
There's something that you do, I'm sure, with people that you roll with, almost at any level, where the other person's like, hey, how did you do that? Like, I know what that move is, obviously, but how did you do that? And that's the reason why there's 47 million instructionals, because the way Jim Bob does a Kimura and the way Billie Jane does a Kimura.
Well, I'm saying those still go back to like she was talking about, like, I'm not going to say exactly this way, it wasn't her wording, but like a need for some regulation or something that more like a governing body. I think she was trying to avoid saying governing body, but there needs to be something.
An accreditation.
Yeah, there's
sorts.
is it just IBJJF who they don't come to your gym, they don't check you out, they don't inspect you, they don't,
I don't know how they operate.
Right? Yeah, they don't come out and check your right? So there's it's a free-for-all, not just jiu-jitsu, but martial arts in general.
It's somewhat. There's like when you pull up to a community and there's a gate, but you just drive up to it and it comes up. So like it just makes the dummies. It makes the dummies go away. They kind of got a little bit of a.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
there's no security guard.
I guess like when you're talking about, like she mentioned, I didn't know this.
It's very difficult. There's no solution, and that's why we're talking about it the way we are.
That you can only. That now, like a two-stripe
black belt, or
to
promote a
third degree black belt, to promote somebody else a black belt.
Yeah.
I mean it wasn't always like that, right? So like things like that, I think that helps avoid just people giving away black belts just to like, oh, he wants to open a gym, let me give him his black belt.
Yeah, belt farms are a problem. Yeah. No, for sure.
Well, she was a great guest. I really enjoyed myself, and I really do feel
I like
a little bit smarter.
And the strong female perspective, the not playing the victim thing, the training while pregnant. I've never heard anybody talk about training while I didn't even think about it. How many pregnant girls have you seen train? I mean, it was interesting that she, when I said, I asked the mom, and she's kind of like, no, you should look at it the other way. You don't treat her like a delicate flower. Go ask her to train if you think she's worthy. Why you don't got to ask mom? I was like, yeah, you're probably right. Thought I was doing something respectful, or again, you don't know. You didn't come from it from a bad place.
Yeah, it wasn't me like but just didn't want to be like the old creeper, being like, you want to roll?
Yeah, but you're not an old creeper.
Yeah, I know, and they know that. But anyway, all right. Appreciate you guys tuning in. Check us out at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies for all the ways to watch, listen, and support. IG is where we have the best conversations, and actually
that's where we chill.
And TikTok's growing. And funny enough, like the last video that we posted with Lydia Bergamasco, Lydia Coleman Bergamasco, the one that she talked about, like guys not going hard on women, or she was like, I'm going to have a conversation if somebody's, bringing the wrath of God.
Yeah.
We've never had more comments or a bigger conversation than in that on Instagram or TikTok. We've never had a bigger conversation in the comments. And some of it is really stupid. It's the first time I've jumped in and been like, somebody says something stupid. I'm like, what's your belt rank and how long have you been training? Because I want to know, like, if you're saying something so stupid about, like, women's right, what happened to women's rights? What happened to women are equal? It's not, well, okay, so with that thinking, would you go hard on a 5-year-old?
Yeah.
Would you go real hard with a 10-year-old?
There's a
right?
difference.
Yeah, like
there's a size difference.
Yeah, there's a size and a strength
So,
difference.
dude, even dude on dude, when I roll with somebody who weighs 115 pounds or 120
I
pounds,
don't
that's
go
a
as hard.
dude. Yeah, you don't crush him.
So the last guy that I asked, he said he was like a 3rd-degree black belt, and I'm just like,
no, you're not.
you're not.
Yeah.
I think I went to his feed, if I'm not mistaken. I went to his feed and it's like, no jiu-jitsu.
At all.
Not one jiu-jitsu post, nothing referencing jiu-jitsu. Again, it's TikTok, so he didn't have a lot of content, but I think it's stupid. But check us out on TikTok at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies Podcast, on TikTok. But it's at Jiu-Jitsu Dummies on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'm Uncle Milty BJJ on Instagram.
JJD_DJJ69.
Bo.
At BADWERKS.
Very cool. Very cool. All right. That's it.
Let's do it.
All right, everybody. Thank you for watching and listening. Peace, love, jiu-jitsu.
Take it easy, y'all.